Chapter 751, Auction, 5. Qin Baixing stood on the stage and took out several mortal gu, passing them around the hall. A few gu immortals received these mortal gu, showing doubt on their faces. Qin Baixing spoke slowly, the auction of immortal gu is extremely important. The ones that are auctioned first have a greater advantage, they can be exchanged for more varieties of immortal gu. Thus, for fairness, this auction will not go according to the listed order. I have specially prepared these mortal gu. Once you activate them, they will point to one of the immortal gu up for auction. As for which one, it is completely random, nobody can manipulate them. Go ahead and inspect these mortal gu. These words attracted quite a pleased response. The gu immortals inspected the mortal gu in turn as they discussed softly. This method is great. I was worried that my immortal gu would be auctioned later and be at a disadvantage. Qin Baixing is not simple, he considered everything carefully for this auction. If he really did something secretly, I cannot complain. My inspections say that there are no problems at all. These mortal gu were inspected by the gu immortals and were sent to the secret rooms. Soon, it was Fang Yuan's turn. He personally inspected them and discovered nothing wrong with them. After the gu immortals in the secret rooms inspected the gu, the mortal gu went to the single rooms again. The rank 8 gu immortals were almost all in single rooms. After inspecting, the mortal gu were passed back to Qin Baixing. Qin Baixing did not continue the auction. He asked, "Is there anyone else who is still uncertain? Would you like to go ahead and inspect it again?" As expected, there were gu immortals who said that they needed to inspect it again. Among them, some had already inspected the gu before. This set of mortal gu had no problems earlier, but it was passed around. What if someone did something to them while they were passed around? Gu immortals were wary and meticulous, thus they wanted to take another look. After inspecting it again, they found nothing wrong. At this point, the true purpose of this auction was about to begin. Qin Baixing activated this set of mortal gu in front of everyone. They shined in a bright light as smoke rose. The smoke gathered in the air and formed into the two words, Conceal Luck. It has been chosen. The first immortal gu is Conceal Luck Immortal Gu. Qin Baixing shouted. Conceal Luck Immortal Gu was originally numbered at the end of the auction. To think that it became the first now. Tai Bai Yunxing grabbed the east window gu as he muttered after checking. At the same time, many other gu immortals were doing the same thing. The sequence in the east window gu was not the real order. Their own immortal gu could possibly be the next one up for auction. If they happened to be at the end, they could only blame their luck. This was a fair rule, none of the immortals had any disagreements. Even the rank 8 gu immortal great experts agreed with this. On the stage, the screen was changing as it turned into the appearance of the Conceal Luck Immortal Gu. Qin Baixing introduced when the time was right. As everyone can see, this gu looks like a white-skinned beetle. It is half the size of a palm and is a rank 6 Luck Path Immortal Gu. It can conceal one's own luck. The seller wants a Metal Path Defensive Immortal Gu. Whoever has a Metal Path Defensive Immortal Gu can bid for it. There is no lower limit for this. Conceal Luck Immortal Gu, concealing one's own luck. Luck Path has Luck Inspection Gu, it can inspect another person's luck. There is also Conceal Luck Gu, it can hide one's own luck and prevent others from seeing it. This Conceal Luck Immortal Gu is rank 6, it can defend from rank 6 Luck Inspection Gu. Although the effect is good, its use is too narrow. In the main hall, gu immortals were discussing softly, but no one bid for it. If Luck Path was flourishing and widely used, so be it. But since Giant Sun Immortal Venerable created Luck Path, he had been secretive and hidden it for himself. This caused the number of Luck Path Mortal Gu to be very low. Especially Conceal Luck Immortal Gu, it could only have value against someone who had Luck Inspection Immortal Gu. This Immortal Gu's use was too narrow, it had little value. Gu immortals were not stupid, why would they bid randomly? Damn it! The person who had concealed luck immortal Gu was a female Gu immortal. She sat in a single room as she bit her lips. She helplessly watched her conceal luck immortal Gu go without bidding. Nobody wanted it. The first immortal Gu was not successfully sold. This was out of everyone's expectations. Qin Baixing's face was a little dark as he used the mortal Gu in his hands to start the bidding for the second item. The image changed, and showed a cicada-like immortal Gu. This cicada was not as exquisite as spring-autumn cicada. It had a big head and was shining in silver light. Explore new. Uvels on N. Velby.com. This is Heavenly Gong Immortal Gu, a sound path rank 6 immortal Gu, to be traded with a transformation path related immortal Gu. Qin Baixing said. In the main hall, a Gu immortal saw this Gu and flew into a rage, shouting, Heavenly Gong Immortal Gu. Humph, this Gu was mine, but He Lang Zi snatched it. He Lang Zi, come out now. I'll come out, do you think I'm afraid of you? From a secret room, He Lang Zi walked out with a ruthless smile. It is He Lang Zi indeed, a famous loner of the demonic path in northern plains. Rumors say that he had obtained an inheritance of thieving heaven demon venerable, thus he can snatch other people's immortal Gu. This person was raised by a female wolf since he was young. His nature is like that of a wild animal. He is cruel and insidious, and is a loner, being very different from normal people. Old ancestor Shui who had once attempted to recruit him, but he rejected him. The Gu immortals discussed enthusiastically. He Lang Zi crossed his arms as he walked towards the main hall, sitting in front of the shouting Gu immortal. The Gu immortals around him quickly moved away, choosing other seats. You. The shouting Gu immortal pointed at He Lang Zi as his face turned red. He was trembling from anger. Me what? He Lang Zi licked his lips. He had a cruel and mocking gaze. Old man Xiong Yuan, you are a sound path Gu immortal. If you do not bid now, when will you? Transformation path immortal Gu, I have one here. It is called demon ferret skin. After using it, one's skin can turn into the skin of the heart demon ferret. Unfettered scholar's voice came from a single room. A heart demon ferret was a desolate beast. There were normally wisdom path Gu worms in its body. The demon ferret skin could provide resistance against wisdom path attacking methods. After unfettered scholar killed a heart demon ferret, he used it to refine this Gu. But he already had methods to defend against wisdom path, thus this Gu was redundant to him, therefore he took it out. Demon ferret skin, if one can gather demon ferret bone, demon ferret blood, and other related immortal Gu, one can unleash the immortal killer move, heart demon ferret transformation. He Lang Zi's gaze shined as he thought. Transformation path was different from other paths, their killer moves were easy to form. As long as one gathered a set of immortal Gu, they could form an immortal killer move. Thus, there was much to consider when trading for transformation path immortal Gu compared to other paths. He Lang Zi had 3 immortal wolf transformation killer moves. It could allow him to transform into 3 different desolate wolves. They had great battle strength. If he transformed into the heart demon ferret, even though it was similar to the form of a wolf, what He Lang Zi wanted was to develop his fighting ability in water. Thus, He Lang Zi slightly shook his head, not speaking. Qin Baisheng had been observing silently. He said, any other Gu immortals want to bid? I have a moon demon bat claw immortal Gu. It can transform your hands into the bat claws of a moon demon bat. Feng Jiugu said loudly. This is Fairy Yulan who is representing Prince Feng Xian. Isn't Fairy Yulan a sword path Gu immortal? Why does she want the sound path heavenly Gong immortal Gu? She is representing the rank 8 great expert, Prince Feng Xian. This bid is likely to be Prince Feng Xian's intention. The Gu immortals started guessing. Nobody knew that the so-called swordmaster Yulan was actually Feng Jiugu. He was a sound path Gu immortal, thus he desired the heavenly Gong immortal Gu. He Lang Zi did not speak, he shook his head. Moon Demon Bat Claw Immortal Gu could bring about a future possibility, Immortal Killer Move, Moon Demon Bat Transformation. But Xianxia was not good at aerial combat, he even hated the sky. This was because he had lived in a wolf's den in his youth, he learned to move on all fours from his wolf mother, and was skilled in using his teeth to bite objects. Most wolves were land-based creatures, they could not fly. Qin Baixing obtained a transmission, afterwards he said, "The Gu Immortal in the first secret room has bid a grand smoke sea turtle shell Immortal Gu, together with verified information regarding ascending heaven plane." Xianxia's gaze shined, he raised his head. Grand smoke sea turtle was a desolate beast of the sea, it suited his needs. But this turtle was skilled in using illusions to conceal itself, it did not have high speed or strong defenses, this was quite different from Xianxia's battle style. Ascending heaven plane, what is that? Xianxia asked. Although he had high battle strength, he was a loner and did not trust any human Gu immortals, thus he was lacking in information. Humph, a frog in a well. Gu immortal Xiong Yuan laughed as he refused to give up any chance of mocking Xianxia. Ascending heaven plane is a place, anyone who passes it, even if it is a mortal, can enter the immemorial 9 heavens. In the legends, Northern Dark Ice Soul, who was able to enter Black Heaven, went through ascending heaven plane to reach it. Qin Baixing explained patiently. So that's it. Xianxia was moved. He was a rank 7 lone cultivator, he needed to fight for every piece of resources personally. But Northern Plains had limited resources, and the super forces were holding on to them. Meanwhile, the immemorial 9 heavens had the heavenly wind chi wall, only very strong Gu immortals could force their way in and explore the 9 heavens. Even though in the immemorial 9 heavens, only white and black heaven were left intact, while the other heavens were utterly broken, or even completely destroyed, be it the intact heavens or the 9 heavens fragment worlds, they had abundant resources. My battle strength is enough to break through the heavenly wind chi wall, but I cannot fly. If I can get the information regarding the ascending heaven plane. Xianxia was increasingly moved. As he thought about it, 2 more Gu immortals took out their transformation path Immortal Gu and entered the bidding. One was the shouting Gu immortal who wanted to tear Xianxia into pieces, Gu immortal Xiong Yuan. A total of 5 Gu immortals bid for 1 Immortal Gu. They continued to increase their bids, or added in immortal essence stones, even providing rare resources, lost Gu recipes, or a large group of beasts. Eventually, Xianxia chose the offer of the first secret room, obtaining Grand Smoke Sea Turtle Shell Immortal Gu, as well as a large group of water wolves. The 2 sides made the transaction in public. Because the Gu immortal in the secret room could not show up, Qin Baixing was the middleman for this. After Xianxia got the intelligence about ascending heaven plane, he looked at it in anticipation, but when he saw it, he stared with furious eyes as he started to shout in anger. Chapter 752, Auction, 6. Why, is there an issue with the ascending heaven plane information? Qin Baixing's expression changed as he asked. This was his auction, according to the oath, neither buyer or seller were allowed to lie. Verified information was given, which meant that there was a true location. No. Xianxia's expression turned grim, he refused to speak, but it looked like he had suffered a huge loss. That batch of water wolves? He asked. It is already in the blessed land. Qin Baixing said. Bring me there. Xianxia said stiffly. Qin Baixing waved his hand and teleported Xianxia away. After the latter checked the goods and found no mistake, he collected the wolves and left the auction in advance, without returning to the auction hall. Ha ha ha, seeing this wolf rascal suffer a loss, it is truly quite gratifying. In the first secret room, Murong Jin Xiao laughed. Next to him, the rank 8 Gu immortal from Eastern Sea was playing with the heavenly Gong Immortal Gu. Thanks to esteemed guests' help, even though He Lang Zi saw the location of ascending heaven plane, it was in Eastern Sea and he could not go there. One could only imagine his anger. Murong Jin Xiao thanked. No need to thank me, my daughter is skilled in music, she cultivates sound path, I bought it for her. I was not targeting He Lang Zi personally. The Eastern Sea rank 8 Gu immortal waved his hand. Ascending heaven plane is in Eastern Sea, I know the location of it. How did the Gu immortal in the first secret room learn about it? Fang Yuan was suspicious. I vaguely remember that there is a super force in northern plains that has connections with Eastern Sea, it was Murong tribe, right? Soon, Fang Yuan set aside his suspicions. Because Qin Baisheng had chosen the third immortal Gu that was up for auction, it was Fang Yuan's rising azure cloud Gu. Qin Baisheng announced clearly, Immortal Gu Rising Azure Cloud, rank 6 cloud path, specialized in ascending and descending in the air, the seller wants a strength path Immortal Gu. Anyone interested can start bidding. Fang Yuan was now a strength path Gu immortal, this was a fact that could not be changed. Even though strength path was declining now, he could only push on in this direction. Because of spring-autumn cicada, ever since rebirth, his plan had been to become a time path Gu immortal using his first aperture. In regards to this, he was quite helpless. In the earlier stages of this life, Fang Yuan simply chose strength path as a transitory measure. In the end, because he was forced by circumstances, he ascended to an immortal using strength path. And because of Reckless Savage's true meaning, his strength path attainment rose to Grandmaster level, becoming equal with Fang Yuan's blood path. This was unexpected. Fang Yuan would rather give up blood path than spring-autumn cicada. He was undoubtedly a blood path Grandmaster, but there was more than one blood path Grandmaster other than him. On the other hand, there was only one spring-autumn cicada in this world, and it was Red Lotus Demon Venerable's vital Gu. Looking at the two, the choice was clear. But if Fang Yuan wanted to walk on time path, he would need to walk on a long journey. He lacked a time path foundation, and he was not a time path Gu immortal either. The current situation was, Fang Yuan was an immortal zombie, he did not know when he could regain his living status. In a short time, if he wanted to gain more battle strength, he could only choose strength path immortal Gu. This is the Star Desolate Hound strength Gu, it can grant you the strength of a Star Desolate Hound. I have the Iron Crown Eagle strength Gu, I'll throw in another 150 kilograms of Great Lake soil. A Qi Grand Lion strength Gu, and 5 drops of Rule I blood. As the bidding continued, a Gu immortal's bid made the hall go into a commotion. Rule I blood. Did I hear wrongly? One of the 10 great catastrophes, Rule I tribulation, only by piercing the Rule I can one obtain this blood. This blood is genuine immortal material, it can be the main material to make a rank 6 immortal Gu, or a supplementary material for a rank 7 immortal Gu. Fang Yuan shook his head, although Rule I blood was precious, 5 drops was too little. He sighed, although strength path was declining, the number of strength path immortal Gu was not few. But if not for this auction, he would not have seen so many strength path immortal Gu. Northern Plains Gu immortals, compared to the other 4 regions, had the lowest financial power. But even so, after many years of accumulation, they still had quite the sum. Gu immortals had many precious goods, but they usually kept it to themselves, hiding their wealth from others. Especially immortal Gu, once these were exposed, they might get targeted, thus, they hid immortal Gu even more deeply. Only during this auction would Gu immortals expose these Gu voluntarily. Otherwise, why would he say that the auction was a rare chance and a precious opportunity that he could not miss? A total of 5 Gu immortals bid for Rising Azure Cloud Immortal Gu. After a few rounds, 2 Gu immortals backed out, not long after, the third stopped. Only 2 were left. But before they decided on the victor, Fang Yuan had sent a message to Qin Baisheng, enough, I'll choose the third person. The one with Iron Crown Eagle Strength Gu. This auction involving Immortal Gu was different from normal auctions. Firstly, Immortal Gu were unique. Secondly, there was no developed economy, they did not have a common currency. Thirdly, Gu Immortals' resources were all different, most of the precious immortal materials were hard to evaluate. Thus, during the auction, the seller could choose any buyer. Even though buyers competed with each other, it was only to attract the seller and move them. The winner who outbids the rest might not necessarily get the auction item. To simplify it, this was a seller's market. Immortal Gu were unique. If I did not sell it, where could you buy it? A moment later, Fang Yuan and that Gu Immortal completed the transaction. The latter obtained the Rising Azure Cloud Immortal Gu, while Fang Yuan obtained the Iron Crown Eagle Strength Gu, as well as a batch of immortal materials that were listed on Xianxia Land Spirits list. The reason why he chose Iron Crown Eagle Strength Gu was because this was the only one which was a flying beast, the rest were all land-based creatures. Fang Yuan had true solid bat wings now, it was compatible with the strength of a flying beast. If he could unleash the Iron Crown Eagle Strength Gu while flying, it would have an effect on par with immortal movement killer moves. After Rising Azure Cloud was the fourth auction item, it was a Fire Path Immortal Gu. Once this Gu appeared, a small surge erupted in the auction, even the rank 8 Gu Immortal, 5 Elements Grandmaster, joined the bidding. In terms of wealth, how could rank 6 Gu Immortals and ordinary rank 7 Gu Immortals compare to a rank 8 Gu Immortal? But in the end, 5 Elements Grandmaster returned empty-handed. The seller did not choose him, even though he was the eventual winner of the bidding. He would rather risk offending a rank 8 grade expert, that was because the immortal materials offered by the buyer were too valuable to him. Immortal materials all varied greatly, the different types available were like the numbers of stars in the sky, not even 5 Elements Grandmaster could possess all of them. But that was exactly why the auction was so interesting, because everyone had a chance. The fifth and sixth items were both Metal Path Immortal Gu. The auction hall became much more heated now. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, these were the 5 most mainstream paths, they were even more popular than Cloud Path and Sound Path. Strength Path and Chi Path were much less so. Eventually, 5 Elements Grandmaster obtained one of the Metal Path Gu worms, the last one was won by Qin Baisheng. Not only was he the organizer of the auction, he was also a participant. As time passed, Immortal Gu after Immortal Gu were bought and sold. This was a rare scene that had not happened in a few hundred years of time in Northern Plains. There were records in history regarding such auctions, but they were smaller in scale. The most important thing was that the collapse of 88 True Yang Building caused all the Gu Immortals to have some form of profit, this caused the auction to be at such a scale. Rarely seen Immortal Gu appeared one after another, Northern Plains Gu Immortals were trying to take advantage of this rare situation. Next is the 23rd auction item, Worldly Wave Trace. This Gu is rank 6 and is used for movement. Qin Baisheng was still introducing it when 2 Gu Immortals already began staring with shining eyes. Finally, Worldly Wave Trace, one of the core Immortal Gu of Water Pavilion. I have to get it no matter what. Feng Jiu-Gu clenched his fists. Meanwhile, in the first secret room. Worldly Wave Trace, very good, I did not waste my efforts after all. I already have the relevant Immortal Gu recipe in my hands, once I get it, I have a high chance of refining Worldly Horizon Immortal Gu. World Horizon Immortal Gu can allow me to enter the immemorial 9 heavens freely, it can reduce the cost of breaking through the heavenly wind chi wall. The Gu Immortal from Eastern Sea was already excited and in anticipation. The use and value of an Immortal Gu varied from one person to another. To Feng Jiu-Gu, this was one of the cores to construct the rank 7 Immortal Gu house, Water Pavilion. To the Eastern Sea Gu Immortal, it was a path towards the immemorial 9 heavens, the way to immense benefits. These two choices had their own advantages, it was hard to say which was a better way. I have a star desolate hound strength Gu. A peach wolf strength Gu. A wailing whale strength Gu. The Gu immortals bid rapidly. Feng Jiu waited patiently, seeing that the rank 6 Gu immortals in the main hall were bidding, he could not help but smile. Using Swordmaster Yulan's voice, he said, I have a strength path immortal Gu here, called Pulling Mountain. It will allow your strength to pull up a mountain. I will also add in 150 kilograms of heaven metal. Heaven metal? Incredible, this is an immortal material that is on par with the Rule I blood. It is only produced in the immemorial 9 heavens. 150 kilograms from the start, this is much more than 5 drops of Rule I blood, did I hear wrongly? There was a commotion in the main hall. Feng Jiu took out a huge sum to bid, with one move, he scared off most of his competitors. 150 kilograms of heaven metal was not a small sum, it was extremely valuable. But he only scared off most of them. In the first secret room, Eastern Sea Gu immortal snorted unhappily, using his mortal Gu to bid again. A strength path immortal Gu, overturn river, as well as 250 kilograms of cracked divine water. Is he crazy, 250 kilograms of cracked divine water? This is possible supplementary material for rank 7 immortal Gu. Cracked divine water is on par with heaven metal, it can only be extracted from the deepest part of a great lake. In 100 years, there might only be about 10 to 15 kilograms. Oh. Feng Jiu was slightly shocked, he did not expect such a fierce competitor to appear. He gave an arrogant laugh, using Swordmaster Yulan's identity, he had less reservations, he said, whatever the seller needs, be it materials, Gu recipes, beast groups or variant human slaves, just tell me. The instant these words came out, the whole hall went in an uproar. Most Gu immortals immediately thought of Prince Feng Xian who was backing Fairy Yulan. It seems that Prince Feng Xian wants this immortal Gu. Even that Eastern Sea Gu immortal could not help but guess. But he quickly laughed, his fighting spirit had been triggered, Prince Feng Xian is rank 8, but am I not rank 8 too? Read latest. OV. Soon after, in the auction hall, his voice could be heard, my request is the same as Fairy Yulan's. Can the seller give us an indication? The hall went into an uproar again, they were trying to guess who was in the first secret room, by directly competing with Swordmaster Yulan, they were trying to contest with Prince Feng Xian. Oh. In the 10th secret room, Feng Yuan showed an expression of shock as well. His eyes turned as he laughed lightly, it seems that both sides are not ordinary, they really desire this Gu. In that case, if I do not accede to their request, it would not be fitting. He directly took out Xianxia Land Spirits list, after multiplying the base amounts on it by several times, he handed it to Qin Baisheng. Qin Baisheng received it and showed a strange expression, before displaying it to everyone. The hall went into a third uproar. Isn't this list of items way too absurd? 3,000 kilograms of heaven metal and cracked divine water, who is this seller, does he think these materials are grass growing on the ground? This is an exorbitant amount, he is really asking for an absurd price. At once, even Feng Jiu and the Eastern Sea Gu immortal were stunned. Chapter 753, Second Immortal Gu. Oh. Interesting. Seeing the list of immortal materials given by Feng Yuan, Feng Jiuji's gaze shined as he restored his calm. The Eastern Sea Gu immortal's expression was like it had never changed. He sat on the chair with a disposition of being in control. He asked Murong Jin Xiao beside him, "How many refinement path grandmasters are there in Northern Plains?" On the list, most of them were refinement path immortal materials. The varieties were huge, and the types of materials were chaotic. One could become dizzy from looking at it. Fang Yuan could take it out in an instant. He had evidently prepared it long ago. Only refinement path Gu immortals would bother to prepare such a list, to try and gain something from the auction. Murong Jin Xiao replied without thinking, "There are 4 major refinement path grandmasters in Northern Plains. The greatest one is Yao tribe's rank 8 Gu immortal, Yao Huang. Rumors say that his refinement path attainment has exceeded grandmaster and perhaps even quasi-great grandmaster level. The second is a Gu immortal of my Murong tribe, Murong Xiang. She had once refined a snow path immortal Gu successfully. The third is the second leader of Snowy Mountain, Lady Wan Shou. She has refined Gu for many demonic path Gu immortals. The fourth is a lone cultivator. She is called Lady Miaoli. She is skilled at refining enslavement path Gu worms." The Eastern Sea rank 8 Gu immortal heard this and nodded, not saying anything further. The Gu immortal in the 10th secret room is not simple. By asking for so many Gu refinement materials, even if this is an exorbitant amount, one can see his ambition and unique characteristics. In the main hall, after the Gu immortals regained their senses, they realized this. Right now, this situation has become interesting. Both buyers are quite the characters, they have ample purchasing power. The seller is not to be underestimated either. He has a mysterious background, he is simply unfathomable. Qin Baixing watched with anticipation as he thought about this. He was the organizer of this auction. He knew that the rank 8 Gu immortal in the first secret room came from Eastern Sea. The Eastern Sea Gu immortal, even if he was rank 8, had to restrain himself in Northern Plains. Especially in a place like the auction, outsiders were likely to get targeted. Thus, the Eastern Sea Gu immortal and Murong Jin Xiao chose to hide their identities, choosing this secret room. Since they wanted to join the auction, they had to interact with Qin Baixing, who helped them to hide their identities and gave them the first secret room. This was a form of respect. Immortal zombie Sha Huan, he might look ordinary but he may possibly have a rank 8 monster backing him up. And this rank 8 great expert is skilled in refining Gu. I'm afraid Fairy Li Shan knows this as well. Otherwise, why would he, a mere rank 6 immortal zombie, be so close to the third leader of Snowy Mountain? Qin Baixing was making a guess. In a way, he was correct. Because it was Lang Yalan's spirit who was behind Fang Yuan. In the past, Long-Hair Ancestor was certainly a rank 8 Gu immortal. In that case, I will add in 150 pieces of thunder sound leaves. After a bit of silence, Feng Gu was the first to speak. In the hall, gasping noises could be heard. Thunder sound leaves were not common, they did not exist in the outside world, they could only be created from strong lightning tribulations. It was the essence formed from thunder and lightning. But thunder sound leaves were very rare, they were hard to obtain. This was because ordinary Gu immortal already found it hard to undergo their immortal aperture tribulations. They would not have the ability to pick the thunder sound leaves during their tribulations. Even if they had the ability, they needed a specific method to pick the thunder sound leaves. Thus, even in Treasure Yellow Heaven, thunder sound leaves were very rare. But now, Feng Gu was offering 150 of them. He. The Eastern Sea Gu immortal laughed. Is Prince Feng Xian so petty? This list clearly states that the seller wants 280 thunder sound leaves. After pausing for a while, the Eastern Sea Gu immortal shouted, I have 360 heaven-flying jades. Heaven-flying jade, this is a type of jade that can allow a person to fly in azure heaven, of the immemorial 9 heavens. This jade has some mystical senses, it is like a bird or beast, it can avoid capture on its own. Upstata T from N, 0, / V. / LBN / dot, co / M. Who is the person in the first secret room? He offered 360 heaven flying jades at once, it directly fulfills the amount on the list. In the hall, murmurs could be heard again. Actually, the Eastern Sea Gu immortal was also feeling heartache. He had once had an opportunity and entered a large azure heaven fragment world for exploration, obtaining more than 400 heaven flying jades in the process, while getting injured. Right now, to compete for worldly wave trace immortal Gu, he offered the majority of them, to deal a huge blow towards his contender. In the single room, Feng Jiu snorted, his expression turned solemn. The other party's actions made him realize, they were just like him, they were determined to get worldly wave trace immortal Gu. Offering 360 heaven flying jades at once, this showed their immense wealth, they were a powerful foe. But who was Feng Jiu? He was the person publicly recognized to have the highest battle strength in Central Continent's 10 great ancient sections. Even though he was rank 7, he could withstand rank 8 Gu immortals, with Spirit Affinity House backing him, and the many years of accumulation, his foundation was immensely abundant. If there were any rank 6 or 7 Gu immortals in this auction who could contest with rank 8 great experts, then Feng Jiu would definitely be number 1 amongst them. Adding more. Feng Jiu did not hesitate, he continued, I'll add 10,000 pieces of star pupils. Star pupils, a rare material of the immemorial 9 heavens, not able to be found in the 5 regions. It was an immortal material that originated from blue heaven. In blue heaven, stars flew around in carefree fashion, raining down endless stardust. Among these uncountable stardust fragments, some were 8-sided, some were 5-sided, 7-sided, 16-sided. There were also stardust fragments with no edges, they were round. These edgeless fragments were like round jewels, the starlight gathered into the shape of an iris, thus, they were known as star pupils. Feng Jiu's offer was shocking to the Gu immortals. When this list first appeared, I had thought that there would not be a buyer so foolish as to pay such a huge price for an immortal Gu. I was wrong. The list only needs 8,000 edgeless stardust fragments, but Swordmaster Yulan is offering 10,000. This is evidently a counterattack against the competitor. Too wealthy, they are too wealthy. Is this the accumulation of a rank 8? Compared to these people, I am like a pauper. Such a feeling is really not good. The Eastern Sea Gu immortal heard Feng Jiu's offer and his breathing stopped for a moment. Honestly speaking, he did not expect that he would attract a fiercer counterattack, an even stronger backlash. Although there are a lot of star pupils, I must remind the seller. Star pupils, after all, vary in quality, a fragmented star pupil and an intact star pupil have very different value. The Eastern Sea Gu immortal said. Feng Yuan heard this and thought about it, the voice from the first secret room was correct, this was true. But on Xianxia Land Spirit's immortal material list, he did not mention this. The reason was, Xianxia Land Spirit did not expect such a situation to occur. He thought, it was hard enough to collect star pupils. It was good if they could find any, the quality was not an issue, that was a secondary concern. You've said so much, but can you actually make a new offer? If not, I have a lot more here. Feng Jiu smiled coldly, he continued his attack, mentioning region sand, sun salt, star galaxy wind, plane fire, and 3 other immortal materials, although the amount did not fill up the list, the variety was enough to be shocking. A Gu immortal immediately sighed, Fairy Yulan is cold and arrogant, she is going all in. Before the opponent made an offer, she raised it once again. A Gu immortal beside him analyzed, this is a bidding tactic. In my opinion, the mysterious Gu immortal in the first secret room is a formidable person as well, he will not give up easily. Feng Jiu's offer gave the Eastern Sea Gu immortal in the first secret room a reminder. That's right, the seller can take out such a list, they definitely cultivate refinement path. Refining Gu requires a large variety of materials, a large quantity of one material is not enough. The other party is making such an offer to attract them, I need to change my tactics as well. The Eastern Sea Gu immortal thought about it before shouting again. He competed with Feng Gu, offering huge amounts of immortal materials. This made the Gu immortals present listen with dazed expressions, like they were dreaming. After a few rounds, be it Feng Gu or the Eastern Sea Gu immortal, they started breathing roughly. In the secret room, Gu immortal Murong Xianxia, who was at the side, could not say anything further. These two lunatics. In a single room, the rank 8 Gu immortal, 5 elements grandmaster, shook his head, sighing helplessly. He cultivation included metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. He needed Gu worms from all the 5 paths. He wanted to participate in the water path immortal Gu worldly wave traces auction, but looking at this competition, his desire dwindled. Feng Yuan was quite surprised. If he added Feng Gu and the Eastern Sea Gu immortals bids together, then half of the materials listed would be collected already. Of course, Feng Yuan could only choose one of them. There cannot be 2 victors in this bid. Feng Yuan was not overly happy, his gaze was shining uncertainly. The other parties were not idiots, they were going after worldly wave trace immortal Gu so fiercely, that proved that for them, they could derive much greater benefits from this immortal Gu. I'll offer 5 kilograms of drunk immortal Qi. At one side, the Eastern Sea Gu immortal had made another offer. The auction hall started whirring, as if a small explosion had happened. What is drunk immortal Qi? It is also an immortal material, but its use is quite obscure. It can make even Gu immortals drunk, it can only be created in a special environment. This drunk immortal Qi is usually sold in traces. Even in Treasure Yellow Heaven, condensed drunk immortal Qi that are in liquid form are sold in grams. Since when are they sold in kilograms? The Eastern Sea Gu immortal was really wealthy. With this heavy blow, even Feng Jiu's expression became solemn. Feng Gu knew the value of this drunk immortal Qi, 5 kilograms of it was simply extraordinary. Feng Gu was hesitant, if he made an offer again, he would need to provide value equivalent to 5 kilograms of drunk immortal Qi. He calmed down and thought about it, asking himself, for solely worldly wave trace immortal Gu, is such a price worth it or not? Of course it was worth it. Rebuilding Water Pavilion had been a wish of Spirit Affinity House for ages. Although Spirit Affinity House had the complete recipe of Water Pavilion, they could refine only the mortal Gu, the immortal Gu were unique. For Water Pavilion, Spirit Affinity House had put up detailed missions, recovering each of the core immortal Gu would have an immense reward. In that case, so be it. Feng Gu thought about it rapidly, after making up his mind, he took out another immortal Gu while gritting his teeth. This is the Strength Path Immer. Chapter 754, Domination Immortal Chu Du. The silence did not last for long, the auction hall exploded into a commotion soon afterwards. The Gu immortals talked among themselves, as many of the Gu immortals in the hall directed their gaze towards a single room. This single room was the place where Fairy Yulan was inside. Everyone subconsciously wanted to see what expression Swordmaster Yulan had when she made such a shocking decision. Even the organizer, Qin Bai Sheng, was a bit stunned. He asked, exchanging 2 for 1, is that what you mean, Fairy Yulan? That is the case. Feng Gu made the decision already, he had no more hesitations. Hearing Feng Jiu's confirmation, the discussions in the hall became softer. Feng Gu was a sound path Gu immortal, why did he have 2 strength path immortal Gu in his possession? In truth, he had many more immortal Gu than just these 2. New St. Rise at n/vel/b/i/n.co. Feng Jiugu led the 10 Gu immortals into Northern Plains secretly. He had important missions assigned to him. The first was to find the culprit behind the collapse of 88 True Yang building, the person who activated Central Continent's arrangements in advance. The second one was to collect as many immortal Gu as he could. To achieve this target, the Central Continent Gu immortals prepared many methods. One of the ways was to exchange Gu, thus they brought along many immortal Gu from their sects. After all, Gu worms were hard to snatch. A Gu master can destroy their own Gu worms in an instant with just a thought. The same applied to immortal Gu. The immortal Gu that they brought over were mostly from unpopular paths, like Strength Path, Qi Path, and others. Intelligence on Northern Plains was always in the grasps of the 10 great ancient sections. Qin Baixing had not concealed the matter of him holding the auction, he even promoted it greatly. Thus, Feng Jiugu and the others had heard about this even when they were in Central Continent. It could be said that Feng Jiuji's appearance in the auction was not a last-minute decision, he had planned for it long ago. In the current world, Strength Path was not doing well, it had been weakening. Those with enough wealth and ambition would certainly not choose to cultivate in Strength Path. Using these Gu worms to exchange for Gu worms of other paths, to the 10 sects, this was a form of victory. Although the Eastern Sea Gu Immortal was a rank 8 grade expert, when they truly competed, he still lost to Feng Jiugu. After all, Feng Jiugu was backed by the 10 great ancient sections. Meanwhile, the Eastern Sea Gu Immortal entered Northern Plains secretly and attended this auction, it was his personal matter. Feng Jiugu had the resolution to do a 2-for-1 exchange, but he did not. But he was not resigned. He made a final effort, bidding, "I will add, a sandalwood sacred elephant egg." A small commotion occurred in the hall again. A sandalwood sacred elephant is an ancient desolate beast. After it grows to adulthood, it can rival rank 7 Gu immortals. The most important thing is to raise it from a young age, establishing a deep relationship, there would be a low chance of betrayal. A living ancient desolate beast's value is very high. If managed well, it is like a treasure trove with endless value. The blood of the sacred elephant is a good immortal material, the tusks of the sacred elephant will grow back even if they are removed. The Gu immortal in the first secret room is using another approach. This is quite impressive, an immortal Gu versus an ancient desolate beast, comparing the two, they each have their advantages and disadvantages, it is hard to decide. Immortal Gu are indeed unique, but ancient desolate beasts are useful too. Especially when the seller seems to have interest in refinement path, he might be moved and choose the ancient desolate beast. The people discussed. At this point, Feng Jiugu and the Eastern Sea Gu Immortal stopped bidding. The situation was uncertain now. Feng Jiugu was exchanging 2-for-1, he had great resolution and had a better chance. But the Eastern Sea Gu Immortal's offer was similarly enticing, he had a chance of victory too. As the auction hall turned silent, everyone was waiting for Feng Yuan's decision. This was an unexpected climactic moment of the auction, how would it end, who would be the winner that obtains worldly wave trace immortal Gu? Everyone was waiting in anticipation. Feng Yuan thought about it before making his decision, informing Qin Baixing secretly. Qin Baixing nodded, announcing publicly, the seller has decided, they will sell worldly wave trace immortal Gu to Fairy Yulan. Once he said that, everyone breathed out in relief, starting their discussions. It was logical that Fairy Yulan won. It was a 2-for-1 trade after all. If it was me, I would choose the ancient desolate beast. After all, the immortal essence expenditure of using 2 immortal Gu is high. Which lucky person does this worldly wave trace immortal Gu belong to? He actually sold it for such a good price, 1 immortal Gu in exchange for 2. Indeed, if I had not witnessed this personally, I would never believe it. Fairy Yulan, or rather, Prince Feng Xian definitely has other objectives. They are not fools, since they are offering such a high price, then the benefits they can gain must also be higher. As long as there is demand, there is a market, and profits can be gained. The greater the demand, the greater the profit. Not just them, even Fang Yuan was trying to decipher the reason why Swordmaster Yulan was buying worldly wave trace immortal Gu at such a high price. Prince Feng Xian. The Eastern Sea Gu immortal muttered this name as his expression turned slightly dark. As the auction continued, an Earth Path immortal Gu appeared next. But the atmosphere was far beneath that of earlier. Most of the Gu immortals were still thinking about the earlier situation, they were still discussing it. What was the meaning of affluence and wealth? They had finally seen it clearly. Even though many people were suspicious, why would Prince Feng Xian, a fire path cultivator, be interested in a water path immortal Gu? But the mind of a rank 8 grade expert was hard to decipher, it was not something an outsider could guess so easily. A mainstream path immortal Gu was rapidly sold after several rounds of bidding. The quick deal gave people a relatively boring feeling. Towards this, Qin Baisheng was helpless, he could only smile bitterly. After the climax, it would be the downturn. After all, Feng Gu and the Eastern Sea Gu Immortals' bids were too imposing, it weakened a lot of the Gu Immortals' desires to bid. Fang Yuan sat in a secret room, playing with the 2-strength path immortal Gu as he paid attention to the auction. Transactions involving immortal Gu were done on the spot. Fang Yuan looked through those immortal materials, he checked that there was no issue with the quantity. Through Feng Jiuji's cooperation, the 2-strength path immortal Gu were completely refined by Fang Yuan, they were now his. At the same time, worldly wave trace immortal Gu was in Feng Jiuji's hands. This is worldly wave trace immortal Gu. After so many years, it is finally back in Spirit Affinity House's hands. Feng Gu sighed softly, he felt some emotions. As immortal Gu were auctioned off one by one, as time passed, the atmosphere of the auction hall became heated once again. Next is the 34th auction item, Strength Path Immortal Gu, Cauldron Strength. This is a rare Strength Path defensive immortal Gu. Once activated, it can create a strength cauldron, protecting oneself. The seller wants a Wisdom Path immortal Gu. Qin Baisheng said. Most of the Gu immortals in the hall had little interest. Strength Path was declining, few people cultivated it, thus its demand in the market was small. Just as the owner of Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu was anxious, a hoarse and unique voice came from a single room. Wisdom Path Immortal Gu loving affection. This voice, its domination immortal Chu Du. Immediately, someone in the hall shouted. That's right, it should be him, his voice is hoarse like this. To think that domination immortal came. What is so strange about it? Lord Chu Du is a famous strength path expert, why would Qin Baisheng not invite him? Domination immortal Chu Du. In a single room, Feng Gu drank his tea as his eyes shined. Before he came to Northern Plains, he had obtained some information. The information regarding domination immortal Chu Du was rich and had a lot of details. Feng Gu placed great emphasis on him. Chu Du was a rare strength path Gu immortal, not only did he have great battle strength, he even had overflowing talent, creating a side branch of strength path personally. Strength Path was a huge path, it had once flourished. Right now, Strength Path was split into Beast Strength Phantom Branch, Atmospheric Heaven and Earth Branch, as well as Human Strength June Strength Branch. The Beast Strength Phantom Branch included Bull Strength, Tiger Strength and others. The Strength Path Immortal Gu, Iron Crown Eagle Strength Gu, that Fang Yuan had obtained some time ago was in this branch. Atmospheric Heaven and Earth Branch was the strength of nature, like wind strength, water strength, fire strength and others. Or for example, pulling mountain and pulling water that Fang Yuan obtained from selling worldly wave trace immortal Gu, both belonged to this branch. Human Strength June Strength Branch referred to the Gene Strength Gu, strength of 10 Gene Gu, June Strength Gu, strength of 10 June Gu, strength of 100 Jun Gu and others. This small branch was created solely by Chu Du. He brought strength path onto another track and revitalized this dying path using his own methods. Right now, the human strength Jun strength branch was already the mainstream strength path cultivation in Northern Plains. All the Gu masters in Northern Plains had a strength path foundation. They had all used Jin strength Gu, strength of 10 Jin Gu, Jun strength Gu, strength of 10 Jun Gu and others. One could say that Domination Immortal Chu Du had single-handedly turned around the situation of strength path, affecting all of the Gu cultivator paths in the world. Feng Jiuge naturally had to pay a lot of attention to such a person. In fact, it was particularly great emphasis. Northern Plains is constantly engaged in battles. It is also a place where heroes emerge. If there is a chance, I have to meet this Domination Immortal. Feng Jiuji's mouth curled into an excited smile. Meeting all of the heroes in this world, that was the ambition of a true man. At this time, a voice echoed, "Delight in water and mountain immortal Gu, and 5,000 kilograms of cloud soil." Guh. Feng Jiugu spat out the tea in his mouth, his eyes stared widely as he lost his calm. "Delight in water and mountain immortal Gu." He shouted, "Damn it, my worry came true." Immortal Gu could be placed up for auction. They could naturally be used to trade for other immortal Gu as well. If not for this, all of the registered immortal Gu would be held up and not available for trade. This would greatly affect the auction success. Feng Jiugu understood this rule, and thus he was worried about it. Whatever you worried about was bound to happen. Feng Yuan wanted Strength Path Immortal Gu. He had been paying attention to this Strength Path Immortal Gu since long ago. Right now, he offered Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu. This was part of his original plan. 1 Heaven Pillar Wind. Facing Feng Yuan's competition, Domination Immortal Chu Du raised his offer. Heaven Pillar Wind was quite special. It originated from green heaven. It was like a tall pillar, extremely tall and long. When it blows, it will not cause movement, only blowing on the spot. From outside, it resembled a giant pillar that extended into the sky. 1 Heaven Pillar Wind had high value. It did not lose to Feng Jiuji's earlier bid of 150 Thunder Sound Leaves. Domination Immortal Chu Du. Feng Yuan muttered, immediately understanding, "It seems that you are my biggest competitor this time." Chapter 755, Feng Yuan vs. Chu Du. The 10th secret room bids an intact skeleton of a sky dragon, along with 1,500 grams of fury powder. Qin Baixing stood on the platform and shouted loudly. Chu Du frowned. He had just bid a Heaven Pillar Wind, and the Gu Immortal in the 10th secret room immediately marked up the price with no hesitation. This is a strong foe. Chu Du sighed inwardly. In the previous bidding war of Feng Jiugu and the Eastern Sea Gu Immortal, the price was settled by exchanging 2 Immortal Gu for 1, from which the 10th secret room had profited greatly. Everyone in the auction knew of this. Chu Du could not help but feel pressure. He was also a veteran Gu Immortal with rank 7 cultivation and a deep foundation. In his peak period, the immortal essence stones he had on hand to spend greatly surpassed several tens of thousands. But the situation now was different from the past. Chu Du recently succeeded in undergoing a tribulation of his immortal aperture, but as a result, his foundation had thinned. Thus, he broke through the heavenly wind chi wall and entered deep within white heaven to explore and replenish resources. He did make some profits, but he suffered injuries, and to heal these injuries he had to borrow immortal Gu from others, which cost him a lot. Overall, he still ended up at a loss. Upstata T from N0/V/LBN/.co/M. The immemorial 9 heavens had plentiful resources, but were also danger zones. The benefits there were accompanied with risks. Thus, at this moment, Chu Du was quite short on money available to spend. But Strength Path defensive immortal Gu are rare. I have been a strength path Gu immortal for so long, but only today have I come across one. If I don't try my best to obtain it, I might regret it in the future. Chu Du thought of this, and gritted his teeth as he continued to bid. However, no matter how much he added, Fang Yuan also kept on adding. Several rounds later, Chu Du finally could not persist with this and sent a message to Qin Baixing secretly, wanting to communicate with the 10th secret room. Qin Baixing was surprised, but without any change in expression, he sent the message to Fang Yuan. With Fang Yuan's permission, Chu Du was able to send a letter to the 10th secret room. In the letter, Chu Du wrote, if Fang Yuan to retreat from the bidding war, he would owe Fang Yuan a favor and would do a task of equivalent value for Fang Yuan in accordance to the future circumstances. If Fang Yuan did not believe him, they could use an immortal Gu to create a vow. Not only this, Chu Du also said he would provide Fang Yuan precious information regarding reckless savage demon Venerable's true meaning. Fang Yuan was surprised and also happy as he read this letter. There was no doubt Chu Du wrote this letter because he wanted to obtain Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu, and because of his insufficient financial condition, he wanted to talk things over with Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan certainly would not agree. He was a Strength Path Gu Immortal as well, and naturally wanted to obtain this rare Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu. As for Reckless Savage Demon Venerable's true meaning, Fang Yuan already had a rough understanding of it, he even obtained benefits personally. I had originally thought Domination Immortal Chu Du had deep pockets, but who could have thought he would make a fool of himself this quickly? It seems his fortune is at rock bottom. He he he. Fang Yuan snickered while making another high bid. Chu Du gritted his teeth as he proceeded with the bidding, but the items he used to bid were a mishmash of different goods. Fang Yuan increased his bid again, adding on rank 7 immortal materials, which could act as the main refinement material to refine a rank 7 immortal Gu. Their value was very high. Chu Du sighed but still was not resigned to giving up as he again added bits and pieces from here and there, bidding many rank 6 immortal materials. The overall price was similar to Fang Yuan's rank 7 immortal materials. The Gu immortals in the hall began to notice the clues now. Strange, Lord Chu Du seems to be in a strained situation. I had vaguely heard that Domination Immortal had undergone a tribulation few months ago. It seems the injuries from the tribulation were quite heavy. Chu Du had borrowed Healing Immortal Gu from Yao Huang, and reportedly had to pay a considerable price. The Gu immortals quietly spoke to one another while sighing. Chu Du was feeling anxious, but there was someone else who was more anxious, Feng Jiu Gu. This Domination Immortal also cannot handle the situation. Feng Jiu Gu felt disappointment. He had been hoping Chu Du could pressure the 10th secret room with his might and overwhelm them to achieve victory. But despite Chu Du's reputation, currently his poor financial capacity was making a scene that Feng Jiu Gu could not bear to continue witnessing. He had no choice but to think of a way to stop Fang Yuan from winning. Worldly Wave Trace and Delight in Water and Mountain, these two immortal Gu both belong to the Gu immortal in the 10th secret room. This person is mysterious and seems to have a major origin. It is even possible that they are the main culprit of the imperial court case. I know them, but they don't know about me. The enemy is in the open while I am in the dark right now. It won't be appropriate if I directly buy Delight in Water and Mountain from him or her. Not to mention the chance of inadvertently alerting them, if they infer some clues and decide to not sell the immortal Gu, that would be anything but good. Feng Jiu Gu kept on thinking. He also had a strategic mind, he had both brains and brawn. If not for this, Spirit Affinity House would not entrust him with such an important task and send him as the leader of the group infiltrating Northern Plains. If I directly interfere and participate in the bidding, that would be inappropriate as well. I am under the identity of Swordmaster Yulan, but I have already bought Worldly Wave Trace. If I openly buy Delight in Water and Mountain again, in the case that the person in the 10th secret room knows of the secret of Water Pavilion, the possibility of exposing myself increases greatly. Feng Jiugu had secretly infiltrated into northern plains and also disguised his identity. Even if he was very powerful, he would be fighting in foreign territory, so he had some misgivings. The most troublesome thing is, even if someone outbids others in this auction, if the seller does not choose them, it would still be a failure. Even if I interfere and suppress others, there won't be much significance. Moreover, there was another point as well. Even if Feng Jiugu succeeded in the bidding and bought Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu, what would he use it for? He did not want a Strength Path Immortal Gu. Instead, he wanted to sell Strength Path Immortal Gu in exchange for other, more suitable Immortal Gu. Feng Jiuji's mouth dried. He took a sip of tea while having a regretful feeling in his heart. If I was not alone and had someone to help me, it would be much simpler to deal with this problem. However, on one hand, his move, vaguely familiar face, was an immortal killer move and it could not be easily passed on to others. On the other hand, he also could not use the Gu immortals at Prince Feng Xian's side. The logic here was simple: if, by any chance, Feng Jiuji's identity was exposed, Prince Feng Xian would not be greatly implicated. Prince Feng Xian could proclaim he knew nothing of it, and keep on lurking undercover. With these thoughts in mind, Feng Jiugu made the decision and quietly got in contact with Domination Immortal Chu Du. The Gu immortals in single rooms and the main hall could directly contact each other, unlike the secret rooms, where Chu Du could only contact Fang Yuan with Qin Baisheng as the middleman. As long as either party within a secret room did not want to make contact, there could be no way to send a message. Chu Du felt strange as he received Swordmaster Yulan's letter. He was fairly close to Yao Huang, but he had only met Prince Feng Xian once. In the letter, Feng Jiugu said he was willing to fund Chu Du to help him win Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu. However, he made a request, saying that he hoped Chu Du could sell the immortal material, True Heaven Silver. It seems that there is some value for the injuries I had in the exploration of White Heaven. I obtained 300 kilograms of True Heaven Silver, which is extremely rare even in Treasure Yellow Heaven. With Swordmaster Yulan's help, I can still compete. Chu Du naturally was somewhat doubtful of Feng Jiuji's true intentions. But he was feeling urgency in obtaining Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu. Chu Du immediately replied to Feng Jiugu, thanking the other party for the help and also stating that after this event, he would give detailed information on the exact location of True Heaven Silver. With Feng Jiuji's help, Chu Du gained confidence and made a bid again. Changes occur in matters within the world, producing mysterious and interesting results. In Fang Yuan's previous life, Chu Du died in battle and the killer had been Feng Jiugu. Now, because of Fang Yuan, these two people joined hands by a stroke of fate. The collaboration between the two was mutually beneficial. To Chu Du, he needed Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu, and Feng Jiuji's help was opportune assistance. To Feng Jiugu, the financial aid he provided Chu Du with would be returned to him in the future. He could pay a low price to obstruct Fang Yuan's target. The bidding price continued to increase higher and higher. Chu Du seemed to have been revitalized, having increased confidence as he made bids with no hesitation. Fang Yuan was surprised at this. After using up the immortal materials from Langya Blessed Land, he had no choice but to start bidding with the immortal materials he had obtained earlier. Feng Jiugu could not help but feel vexed. These immortal materials had been his previously. He had not thought that after taking them out, they would be used against him so quickly. However, Feng Jiugu had no choice but to continue, while also calculating the situation. It seems the situation of Worldly Wave Trace Immortal Gu is going to be repeated. Domination Immortal Chu Du seems to be bent on getting this Strength Immortal Gu. The 10th secret room has been requesting Strength Path Immortal Gu since the beginning, and is now competing with Chu Du, with neither side having the slightest intent to retreat. It seems there is going to be another surge in the auction. The Gu Immortals discussed with one another in the main hall. Fong Yuan finally could not keep being seated, he left his seat and paced around in the secret room. Chu Du clearly had no hope and thus sent the letter, but how, in that case, did he get such a boost in his wealth? Could it be that he was pretending to be weak? Impossible. There would need to be a hole in his brain for him to use such a clumsy plan. That means, someone is helping him. Fong Yuan frowned, he had a hunch, but he could not precisely grasp it. Who was this person helping Chu Du? Why was this person helping him? On the surface, it was a competition between two people, but Fong Yuan felt that there was someone meddling in the dark. Fong Yuan tapped at his immortal zombie head, as he sat down on his seat again and started to use the wills in his mind to help him in thinking. While he thought, he continued bidding. After 2 more bids, he suddenly opened his eyes. A sharp light flashed in his eyes, the thinking just now had given him some results, as he formed some conjectures. I must have this cauldron strength immortal Gu. Fong Yuan suddenly shouted, making an empty show of power, whatever the seller wants, speak, I will do my best to satisfy it. The same goes for me, whatever the seller wants, please speak. Chu Du was silent for a moment before he followed suit, showing no weakness. The hall was in a commotion. The person in the 10th secret room is not simple, directly challenging Chu Du. Sure enough, it has started again, the second climactic moment of the auction. The auction of Worldly Wave Trace was also like this. Now, let's see what the seller wants. The seller did not think for long, immediately speaking of a new requirement, a wisdom path inheritance. Chu Du gave a bitter smile when he heard this request. Where would he find a wisdom path inheritance? Wisdom path has been around for a long time, but it had always been passed down from generation to generation in a single line, and was extremely mysterious and rare. The seller saw the heated bidding war and got greedy, making such an excessive request. Feng Gu also gave a bitter smile, he had many immortal Gu with him, but the seller's request of a wisdom path inheritance caused things to be awkward for him. Wisdom path was rare, even among the 10 great ancient sects, only a few wisdom path inheritances were possessed by them. Fong Yuan had asked for a wisdom path inheritance in Treasure Yellow Heaven for a high price, but this had not been fulfilled. Finally, when fortune arrived for him, he only received an incomplete inheritance, that was also because the other party had an urgent need for the ancient desolate beast corpse. There were many wisdom path Gu worms, but wisdom path inheritances were rare. For a while, Fong Yuan and Chu Du went silent. Chapter 756, Fong Yuan vs. Feng Gu. The seller was requesting for a wisdom path inheritance, this was really an excessive demand. Previously, in the immortal material list that Fong Yuan threw out earlier, at least Gu immortals would more or less have something within it, but wisdom path inheritances were extremely rare. Even if it was a wisdom path Gu immortal, they would not sell their own inheritance, something that is of utmost importance to themselves. Chu Du did not have a wisdom path inheritance, and neither did Feng Gu. Fong Yuan only had an incomplete wisdom path inheritance, it was extremely incomplete, it could not meet the requirements. He sat on the seat, licking his dry lips as he kept quiet, but his heart was growing with anticipation. At once, be it the 10th secret room or domination immortal Chu Du, they did not speak, the hall fell into a peculiar silence. Eventually, discussions arose in the hall again. Requesting for a wisdom path inheritance, this condition is too much. A wisdom path immortal Gu is good enough, they were still greedy for a wisdom path inheritance. He. This is simply being blinded by greed, such a condition, the 10th secret room and domination immortal are unable to satisfy it. The heated bidding earlier was ruined. This cauldron strength immortal Gu might end up going unsold. But this is nothing much, unsold immortal Gu will be in the second round of the auction according to the sequence. This seller of the cauldron strength immortal Gu also found something amiss, he was anxious and quickly added. Qin Baixing received his transmission and announced again, the wisdom path inheritance does not need to be complete, an incomplete wisdom path inheritance is fine too. Of course, the more complete it is, the better it would be. Feng Yuan laughed heartily, he had a rather incomplete wisdom path inheritance. His bid came from within the 10th secret room, I have an incomplete wisdom path inheritance. Chu Du heard Feng Yuan's bid and his heart jumped, he did not even have an incomplete inheritance. But he still had hope in his heart, he placed his hopes on Swordmaster Yulan. In his perspective, Swordmaster Yulan was backed by Prince Feng Xian, they had incredible foundation and would likely have a wisdom path incomplete inheritance. Feng Jiugu laughed bitterly. Spirit Affinity House indeed had collected incomplete wisdom path inheritances. But he did not have any currently. He quickly used the whole Earth Gu in his immortal aperture and communicated to the other 9 Central Continent Gu immortals. The 9 Central Continent Gu immortals knew about Feng Jiuji's actions. In truth, they were secretly lurking near Crimson Reed Marsh, waiting to reinforce Feng Jiugu. After receiving Feng Jiuji's message, 2 of them had an incomplete inheritance. One was from Old Oracle, he came from Ancient Soul Sect and was a Wisdom Path Gu immortal. The other was Chen Jinqi from Myriad Dragon Dock, he was a flying grandmaster and had once explored an inheritance ground, obtaining one by chance. Feng Jiugu received their message and was overjoyed, quickly interacting with them. Wisdom path inheritances, even if incomplete, were quite valuable. Old Oracle and Chen Jinqi were not from the same sect as Feng Jiugu, even if they were, they still had to properly balance the books. In a moment, Feng Jiugu finished discussing with Chen Jinqi and paid some price to buy the incomplete wisdom path inheritance from him. But after getting it, Feng Jiugu became hesitant. He could naturally provide the incomplete wisdom path inheritance to Chu Du, but doing it in this way was too obvious. He had lied to Chu Du earlier, saying that he wanted Chu Du's immortal materials, the true heaven silver. But now, just for the true heaven silver, he was providing him the valuable incomplete wisdom path inheritance. This was like giving up gold for silver, it did not make sense. Feng Jiugu could imagine, once he showed this inheritance, Chu Du would begin to suspect his true motives. Oh, if I had a companion that understood the situation alongside me, they would be able to bid now. Feng Jiugu sighed again, in this situation, there is an 80% chance that the seller would choose the 10th secret room. Unfortunately, in regards to the seller who is auctioning the immortal Gu, I cannot contact them. Just as Feng Jiugu was about to risk Chu Du's suspicions and take out the incomplete wisdom path inheritance, Chu Du spoke, I do not have an inheritance, I'll back out from this bid. Feng Jiugu was stunned. The truth was, after waiting for a while, the tiny hope in Chu Du's heart vanished. He thought over it, his relationship with Swordmaster Yulan and Prince Feng Xian was not deep, the other party was only helping him because of the true heaven silver. Even if they had a wisdom path inheritance, why would they make such a huge sacrifice to help him? Just for that 300 kilograms of true heaven silver? It was evidently impossible. Chu Du was a smart person, even though he was a lone cultivator, he needed his face. Feng Yuan had made his offer long ago, so many people were watching, Chu Du could not stall this by keeping silent. Thus, he announced his intention to back out from the current bid. Feng Jiuji's expression sunk, when Chu Du announced that he was backing out, he understood the reason behind it. At once, Feng Yuan's victory was imminent, Feng Jiugu did not know what to say. Should he blame Chu Du for being too smart, thus making deductions in advance? Feng Jiugu himself had hesitated, because he lacked a companion, his hands were tied and it was tough for him to manipulate anything. But, even if Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu is handed over, there is still hope. After the open auction, there is still the free transaction period. Feng Jiugu consoled himself, his mental state quickly returned to normal. He had braved through many storms and difficulties in life that had improved him, they were on par with Feng Yuan's. If not for them, he would not be the Feng Jiugu he was today. Feng Jiugu was a type of person with much in common with Feng Yuan. They never gave up and would not mind temporary failure or loss, and they could lower their statuses if needed. The result of the competition for Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu had become quite clear. Domination Immortal Chu Du conceded while Feng Yuan provided an incomplete wisdom path inheritance. But just as Qin Baisheng was about to announce the bid going to Feng Yuan, a third competitor appeared. 11th Secret Room is bidding as well. They are taking out a Wisdom Path Immortal Gu, an incomplete Wisdom Path inheritance, as well as immortal materials that are on par with those of 10th Secret Room. Qin Baisheng suddenly announced. All. West ch. Point. rs on n.o/v. l. I/n/c. m. This was an unexpected situation. The Gu Immortals in the main hall were very interested. Another mysterious Gu Immortal has entered the bidding competition. 11th Secret Room, they are able to make such a high bid. The auction has invited some formidable characters indeed. Since when were Strength Path Immortal Gu so popular, everyone is fighting for this? Qin Baisheng felt more confusion than the others. He knew that Tai Bai Yunsheng and Feng Yuan arrived together, they should be allies. Why were they competing with each other now? Not only him, even the bidder, Tai Bai Yunsheng, was confused. He had just received Feng Yuan's transmission earlier, asking him to do this bid. Since the seller could only choose one person to deal with, whether they chose Feng Yuan or Tai Bai Yunsheng, they would only receive one of the bids. From start to finish, Feng Yuan did not violate the auction's rules. Feng Yuan sat in the 10th Secret Room, his finger was tapping on the armrest of his seat. His eyes were closed until only a slit remained. He continued bidding and competing with Tai Bai Yunsheng. After several rounds, Tai Bai Yunsheng pieced random materials together, showing his limited finances. Next, he purposely hesitated before bidding, displaying a changing mind. After several more rounds of bidding, Tai Bai Yunsheng obtained a notification from Qin Baisheng. After approving of it, he received a letter from another person. This letter's content was similar to the one written to Domination Immortal. Using one of the immortal materials that Tai Bai Yunsheng had as an excuse, he saw that Tai Bai Yunsheng could not afford to continue bidding and was willing to fund him in exchange for the immortal material. Junior brother, just as you had expected, someone is willing to fund me. Tai Bai Yunsheng reported this to Feng Yuan in secret. Oh. Feng Yuan opened his eyes, straightening his back subconsciously. Who? Swordmaster Yulan. Swordmaster Yulan. Feng Yuan's eyes shone with brilliance. Swordmaster Yulan. Prince Feng Xian. He could not sit any longer, he started pacing around in the room. Feng Yuan's plan earlier was only to ascertain a guess in his mind. Now that he saw a result from his test, Feng Yuan was a little surprised. Domination Immortal Chu Du obtained funding, thus he could continue competing with me. This person is likely to be Swordmaster Yulan. If it is her, then why did she fund Chu Du and Tai Bai Yunsheng? It is definitely not for the immortal materials, but to prevent my delight in water and mountain immortal Gu from falling into other people's hands. Delight in water and mountain immortal Gu has no use in my hands, thus I am selling it. But if it falls into the hands of the seller of Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu, then he would not sell the delight in water and mountain immortal Gu again because he wants to have it. Swordmaster Yulan spent a huge sum earlier and used 2 Strength Path Immortal Gu to obtain Worldly Wave Trace Gu. Now, she is trying all sorts of methods to prevent me from selling delight in water and mountain Gu. Why is that? The answer had already been flickering in his mind, that was the rank 7 Immortal Gu House, Water Pavilion. Feng Yuan paced in the room as he thought about it. After a while, he stopped in his tracks, raising his head. The scene in the secret room was like a painting, but Feng Yuan's gaze was like the abyss. It was as if it pierced through the layers of illusions and saw the Gu immortals in the main hall. He saw Swordmaster Yulan who was in the single room. He even saw the region outside of Northern Plains. It was Central Continent. Feng Yuan's gaze was like ice. He laughed coldly in his heart. Impressive, a great move. In my previous life, during the 5 regions chaotic war, a certain supreme elder of Spirit Affinity House managed to sway Prince Feng Xian's heart and recruit him. Prince Feng Xian suddenly joined Spirit Affinity House. It caught people off guard. It almost killed Ma Hongyun, who had become a rank 7 Gu immortal, causing Northern Plains' situation to become dramatically worse. Northern Plains sacrificed large numbers of Gu immortals, countless territories were lost, and Spirit Affinity House was in the forefront, at number 1 among the 10 great ancient sections. To think that Prince Feng Xian all along had been a tool of Spirit Affinity House. Feng Gu had used vaguely familiar face. Feng Yuan could not decipher the truth. The 10 great ancient sects of Central Continent had ordered Feng Gu and the other Gu immortals to enter Northern Plains. It was a top-secret mission. Several Wisdom Path Gu immortals had worked together to eliminate all evidence of their actions. In accordance with Feng Yuan's intelligence-gathering methods, he naturally would not be able to find out anything. Feng Yuan did not know these matters, but Feng Gu was using Fairy Yulan's identity. It instead helped Feng Yuan figure out the important secret that Spirit Affinity House had been hiding. Chapter 757, Resurrection from the Dead. This Swordmaster Yulan has quite impressive methods. If Chu Du did not send me a letter earlier, I might not have found out the flaw. If I did not have my previous life's memories, I would not have connected it either. Feng Yuan sighed in his mind. Feng Jiuji's scheming ability was not inferior to Feng Yuan's. Thus, when he struck, it was like a natural process, there was no traces. But in this contest of wits, Feng Yuan had come out marginally ahead. Firstly, Chu Du was the cause of Feng Jiuji's flaw. Feng Gu did not know that Domination Immortal had sent a letter to Feng Yuan. If he knew, he would not have acted this way. But Chu Du would not tell the other party for no reason. After all, this matter would cause a loss in reputation. At the same time, Chu Du had thought that Feng Gu really wanted his true heaven silver. Feng Jiuji's second weakness was that he did not have accomplices. He was also using a fake identity. He had a lot of worries and restrictions binding him. He was not like Feng Yuan, who had Tai Bai Yunxing assisting him. It could save a lot of trouble. Feng Jiuji's third misfortune was that his opponent, Feng Yuan, was not normal. He was a reborn person. With his previous life's memories, even if he did not know the truth, he could deduce some secrets based on the huge events that had happened. Feng Yuan sat down and continued to think while bidding against Tai Bai Yunxing. The situation had changed again. Earlier, Feng Yuan was in the dark, but now he had a grasp of the situation. He found out Swordmaster Yulan's motive. Even though he did not know about the true identity of Swordmaster Yulan, Feng Yuan had the initiative now. Feng Gu did not know that Feng Yuan had seen through his motives. This was a great opportunity where the enemy was exposed while he was hidden. Right now, Feng Yuan was pondering over an issue. Should he keep Delight in Water and Mountain, causing Spirit Affinity House's plans to fail, or trade it for the Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu, or directly sell the Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu to Swordmaster Yulan? Feng Yuan was open-minded. He was not against others gaining advantages. If he could satisfy Spirit Affinity House and gain a huge amount of benefits, Feng Yuan would do it. But on the other hand, Feng Yuan did not want to give up Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu. Such a Strength Path defensive Immortal Gu was very rare. Once he missed it, he might not find another again. Just as Feng Yuan was hesitating, a voice came from a single room. A wisdom path immortal Gu, kindness thought Gu, an incomplete wisdom path inheritance, and twice the immortal materials for this cauldron strength immortal Gu. The entirety of the hall gasped. The Gu immortal who had entered the bidding competition was not a normal person, it was one of the 5 rank 8 experts in Northern Plains, refinement path Gu immortal Yao Huang. Yao Huang is bidding too. He is a refinement path Gu immortal, why does he have needs for strength path too? Maybe this cauldron strength immortal Gu involves some immense benefits that we do not know about. In a single room, next to Yao Huang, one of the current leaders of the Northern Plains Zombie Alliance, Yin Lu Gong, was seated. Yin Lu Gong said, "Senior Yao Huang, are you really buying this cauldron strength immortal Gu?" Yao Huang chuckled, "Indeed, I want to refine an immortal Gu, resurrection from the dead. There is an important stage where I need a formless vessel to act as the container during refinement. This vessel needs to be formless and ethereal, and cannot have any trace of the 5 elements, light or darkness. Thus, fire, ice, wood, metal, qi and other paths would not work. The best path for this is phantom path, followed by strength path, space path, and finally, rule path." Yin Lu Gong realized, phantom path immortal Gu are extremely rare, they are like wisdom path inheritances. Phantom path immortal Gu that can act as a formless vessel are even rarer. This cauldron strength immortal Gu, even though it uses strength to create a cauldron, it does not have the 5 elements or light or darkness in it, it is formless and ethereal, but it can defend against attacks. It is really a top-tier vessel for Gu refinement. Yao Huang nodded, nurture, use, refinement, they all depend on the person. Immortal Gu are a tool, their use varies from person to person. Little Lu, you should believe my sincerity now, right? Yin Lu Gong smiled bitterly. Earlier, when Yao Huang invited him and pulled his hand when entering a single room, it showed that their relationship was close and many Gu immortals were very envious. But the outsiders did not know the details, Yao Huang had his own motives. These recent years, Yao Huang had been conducting research on an entirely new immortal Gu, it was called resurrection from the dead. Like the name suggested, this Gu could allow a dead person to regain their life. Yao Huang walked on the refinement path, he was also most skilled at refining healing Gu worms. Right now, resurrection from the dead immortal Gu was a new innovation, it would consume a lot of his effort and wealth. In the past, I had been collaborating with your alliance, using immortal zombies as the test subjects to research on the law of life and death. These years, following my accumulations, I've made great gains. I have 30% confidence of refining the immortal Gu, resurrection from the dead, successfully. Yao Huang said with much pride. 30%. Yin Lu Gong showed admiration on his face, a 30% chance, this was extremely high for refining immortal Gu. Once I refine the immortal Gu, the biggest beneficiary is not me, but your zombie alliance instead. Yao Huang made a bid as he said this to Yin Lu Gong. Yin Lu Gong's heart jumped, senior means. That's right. Yao Huang admitted, this Gu involves the law of life and death, turning from dead to alive, it is suitable for you immortal zombies to regain life, and get rid of your statuses as immortal zombies. There is actually such an incredible use, as expected of Lord Yao Huang. Yin Lu Gong was stunned, but he quickly concealed his shock, but if Lord has this immortal Gu, not only would the benefits be immense, you could also use it on yourself to extend your lifespan, correct? Ha ha ha, little Lu, you are so smart. Your thinking is right, lifespan Gu are hard to find, I do not have too much life remaining, I have to find other ways to extend my lifespan. How about it, collaborate with me? Yao Huang smiled as he spoke, admitting openly. Yin Lu Gong smiled bitterly, Lord Yao Huang has seen that I was moved, but to collaborate with Senior, Junior will have to provide at least 10 immortal zombies. Although I am one of the leaders of Zombie Alliance, there are still 2 others. Even the 3 of us together are only left to administer the Northern Plains Zombie Alliance branch. This matter is very important, I need to inform leader Blazing Heaven. 10 immortal zombies are the least required. To refine resurrection from the dead immortal Gu, I will need something that can interact with the life and death Dao marks, that is why immortal zombies are the most optimal Gu refinement material. I know that in Earth Trench, your zombie alliance has a graveyard. Past generations of immortal zombies are all buried there. Yao Huang frowned. Yin Lu Gong rapidly waved his hands. Lord Yao Huang, that is not possible. The dead should rest in peace, because we in Zombie Alliance are in this physical state, we place great importance on that. If I dig up their corpses, I will attract the rage of the entirety of Zombie Alliance. Northern Plains Zombie Alliance's reputation would be ruined. After all, if we make use of even our own members' bodies, who would join such a callous organization? I have 2 immortal zombie bodies in my possession, they are traitors of Zombie Alliance. But even so, I used my killer move, Stone Casket, to seal them up and place them as defenses for the discussion hall's doors. They will not be mobilized under normal circumstances. Humph, you immortal zombies are so stubborn. If I can refine resurrection from the dead immortal Gu, it will greatly benefit all of you as well. Yao Huang showed an unhappy expression, he exerted pressure on Yin Lu Gong. Precisely because Zombie Alliance was stubborn regarding this, Yao Huang had once disguised himself and attempted to enter Zombie Alliance in order to steal some immortal zombie bodies. Unfortunately, his plans were ruined by the door of the discussion hall. Yin Lu Gong was enduring the huge pressure, but he did not dare to relent on this matter. He thought over his words and said, "How about this, senior, this matter is too serious, I cannot make the decision alone. In fact, even us 3 leaders cannot decide this ourselves. We need to inform Leader Blazing Heaven, she will decide. In a few months, I will definitely give you a reply." Yao Huang was unhappy, you 3 leaders are really loyal to Blazing Heaven. Yin Lu Gong felt as if cold sweat was pouring from him, listening to Yao Huang's words, it seemed like he had talked to the other 2 leaders as well. Meanwhile, he said to Yao Huang, "To speak of loyalty, I am ashamed. Honestly speaking, we immortal zombies agree with Zombie Alliance's rules. After all, most Gu immortals ostracize us immortal zombies, they look down on us. Zombie Alliance is our home." Yao Huang snorted coldly, he made an offer in the auction again, directing his unhappiness towards the auction itself. "I'll back out." In the 10th secret room, Fang Yuan spoke. Soon after, Tai Bai Yunxing in the 11th secret room also said, "Would not dare to compete with Senior Yao Huang, I admit defeat." Yao Huang was after Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu, this was not his only goal, he also wanted to show Yin Lu Gong his resolution. To obtain Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu, he exposed a portion of his own wisdom path inheritance, and even took out an immortal Gu to bid. The transaction was quickly completed. Yao Huang held the Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu in his hand and sighed, "This is still rank 6, it seems I will need to spend some effort to get it to rank 7. That will increase the chances of success when I refine resurrection from the dead immortal Gu." Yin Lu Gong's heart jumped, he knew that these words were for him. After entering the single room, Yao Huang had been urging him and showing his resolution. This was the will of a rank 8 great expert. If he did not settle this properly, he might attract the rage of Yao Huang, the attack of a rank 8 great expert would cause an all-out war between Yao Tribe and Zombie Alliance. The Gu Immortals did not expect that this Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu's auction would end up with Yao Huang as the winner. Fang Yuan backed out when he understood the tough situation, Feng Jiu sighed in relief secretly. This situation was good for Feng Jiu's benefits as well. All. West ch. Point. rs on n.o/v. l. I/n/c. m. If Fang Yuan succeeded and the seller obtained delight in water and mountain immortal Gu, Feng Jiu would have much greater difficulty in obtaining it. The seller wanted the wisdom path immortal Gu, they would not sell it, and most importantly, Favourite Gu could not find the seller. From start to finish, this person did not expose their location or identity, they had been asking Qin Bai Sheng to represent him. With this, one could deduce that the seller was likely a bottom-tier Gu immortal and had weak strength, otherwise, they would not act so timidly and carefully. Cauldron Strength Immortal Gu's auction ended, everyone's attention was drawn to the next Immortal Gu. This is the third luck path Immortal Gu. A Gu immortal said. The mysterious luck path Immortal Gu were very famous outside. Because of Giant Sun Immortal Venerable, Northern Plains Gu immortals had a unique attachment to luck path Immortal Gu. The second luck path Immortal Gu was called Peach Blossom Luck, it was sold at a high price. The luck path Immortal Gu currently up was called Good Luck. It was a storage Immortal Gu that could gather and store all of the ownerless good luck that dissipated from heaven and earth. The seller wanted a Fire Path Immortal Gu. The Gu immortals fought over it, eventually reaching a deal at a high price. Chapter 758, Eat Strength. The following auction was like it had been set up in advance, several luck path Immortal Gu showed up consecutively. Leave Luck Gu which could rapidly expend luck, Seal Luck Gu which could seal luck, Transfer Luck Gu which could transfer luck, as well as the Break Luck Immortal Gu that Fang Yuan was after. Unfortunately, the sellers of all these Immortal Gu had their own desires, they requested for metal, wood, water, fire, earth and other Immortal Gu of mainstream paths. This was a weak point of Fang Yuan, if he could not fulfill this basic requirement, he could not even join in the bidding. Fang Yuan had suffered at the hands of Luck Path previously, but he had also obtained great benefits from Luck Path. He wanted to observe the situation and see if he could obtain a few Luck Path Immortal Gu, but now it seemed that he had no chance at all. The most regrettable thing was that he missed Break Luck Immortal Gu by a hair's breadth. Fang Yuan had already obtained Connect Luck Immortal Gu, it could work in conjunction with Break Luck Immortal Gu. But unfortunately, his opportunity to obtain it went by unsuccessfully. This auction was not set up specifically for him, Fang Yuan had gains, and naturally missed opportunities as well. The next Immortal Gu is a rank 7 Luck Path Immortal Gu, it is called Calamity Beckoning. It was finally time for Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu to be auctioned, Qin Bai Sheng spoke slowly as he introduced it. Rank 7 Immortal Gu were quite rare. Most of the Immortal Gu in the auction were rank 6 Immortal Gu. Although it was a difference of just one rank, there was a great disparity in value. This was because the chance of raising a rank 6 Immortal Gu to rank 7 was very low, and the cost of refinement was very high. As for rank 8 Immortal Gu, they did not appear in this auction. The Gu immortals in the hall heard that it was a rank 7 Immortal Gu and showed some interest, they looked over with gazes of anticipation. But after learning about Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu's use, they all shook their heads. Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu's use was to help others by harming oneself, helping another person undergo tribulation, and attract the calamity or tribulation to oneself. Giving up oneself to save others, this was not impossible, but often benefits and exchanges were involved. Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu did not have zero demand, some large forces needed it to help their own members. Furthermore, some Gu immortals were moved, they could use this Gu to help others and earn some profits from it. But Fang Yuan wanted a rank 7 Strength Path Immortal Gu, in the entirety of the auction hall, nobody made an offer. Fang Yuan saw that the situation was not going well, he quickly informed Qin Bai Sheng that they could also use rank 7 Time Path Immortal Gu to trade for it, but there were no responses. It really is Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu, I wonder if this Immortal Gu came from the Gu Immortal in the 10th secret room? Favourite Gu thought over it before communicating with Qin Bai Sheng, requesting to talk to the owner of Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu. Fairy Yuan, you finally lost your patience. Fang Yuan snorted, he rejected this request unhesitatingly. Eventually, because nobody bid for it, Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu was not sold. Fong Yuan was mentally prepared for this result. After all, he was asking for a rank 7 immortal Gu and he wanted a strength path immortal Gu at that. There were few of such immortal Gu. Most importantly, compared to other immortal Gu, Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu was not as attractive, thus nobody bid for it. Fong Yuan's Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu was not the only immortal Gu that went unsold. At the start, there was the Conceal Luck Immortal Gu that went unsold. After that, several other Gu suffered the same fate. There was still a chance left for these unsold immortal Gu. After the auction, there was still an event, the open transaction. During the open transaction, they could still sell these immortal Gu. As time continued to pass, more and more immortal Gu were showcased and bought. The anticipation of the Gu immortals also accumulated gradually. There were few immortal Gu left on the list, they soon would all be presented. The most important item in the auction was about to be showcased. It was the essence of the Luck Path True Inheritance that Qin Baixing obtained. The following immortal Gu is called Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu. It is of Wisdom Path and rank 6. The seller is requesting for a rank 6 Strength Path Immortal Gu. It would be best if it is a defensive immortal Gu. Qin Baixing announced. When there were only a few immortal Gu left, it was finally time for Fong Yuan's Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu to be auctioned. This time, he still asked for Strength Path Immortal Gu. He did not say a word about the immortal zombie body or the method to regain new life. In fact, he did not even mention the White Lotus Giant Silkworm Gu. Once these two matters were mentioned, combined with the Strength Path Immortal Gu, the clues would be too obvious. Fong Yuan had fixed immortal travel, this was known by everyone. Even if Fong Yuan did not know about the relationship between Prince Feng Xian and Spirit Affinity House, he would not be brainless enough to make such a request. Rank 6 Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu in exchange for a rank 6 Strength Path Immortal Gu. The requirement for this auction was much lower than Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu previously. Once Qin Baixing spoke, several Gu immortals started bidding. Strength Path was declining, but Wisdom Path was mysterious and unfailingly stable over the ages. In the eyes of many Gu immortals, a rank 6 Wisdom Path Immortal Gu was much more attractive than a rank 6 Strength Path Immortal Gu. At once, regarding the Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu, the auction hall's atmosphere became incredibly heated. Fong Yuan carefully listened to the bids as he remained unmoved. He was waiting for Swordmaster Yulan to bid. Before long, Swordmaster Yulan indeed entered the bid. I have an Eat Strength Immortal Gu with me. This Gu is not only of Strength Path, but also of Food Path. It is a Strength Path cultivation type Immortal Gu. One may consume beast meat or vegetation related to Strength Path, in order to allow Strength Path Dao marks to grow naturally on the Gu immortal's body. They would fully fit with one's own body. Once he said that, almost all of the Gu immortal's attentions were drawn over. This is a good immortal Gu. For a Strength Path Gu immortal, this is really hard to come by. Food Path has long since vanished, its condition is worse than Strength Path. At least Strength Path had flourished once before, but Food Path did not. It has almost completely disappeared now. All that I've heard of it is that it is very useful for nurturing Gu. Hearing the discussions of the Gu immortals in the main hall, Feng Gu smiled lightly. This immortal Gu did not come from the 10 great sects of Central Continent. Feng Gu had requested it from Prince Feng Xian not long ago because he knew that Fong Yuan would make such a requirement. Although he had many immortal Gu, regarding Strength Path, he only had Pulling Mountain and Pulling Water. Meanwhile, Prince Feng Xian happened to have this. It turned out that after 88 True Yang building collapsed, a formless hand flew out and landed near Prince Feng Xian's grotto heaven. After Prince Feng Xian broke the formless hand personally, he captured the Eat Strength Immortal Gu. This Gu was very useful to Strength Path Gu immortals, but to Prince Feng Xian, it had little use. After receiving Feng Jiuji's letter regarding requesting assistance, as people from the same sect, Prince Feng Xian used his method to secretly send this immortal Gu into Feng Jiuji's blessed land. Fairy Yulan, I wonder if you can sell this Gu to me. I am willing to use another strength path immortal Gu to exchange for it. I will provide valuable immortal materials as well, and I will not interfere with you in the bid for delight in water and mountain immortal Gu. Soon, Chu Du sent a message. Domination Immortal was moved, but that is natural. However, how can the Gu that he wants to exchange with it be more attractive than Eat Strength Gu, even if they are both of Strength Path? Feng Jiu Gu replied, rejecting Chu Du's request. He smiled more confidently now, since the 10th secret room's mysterious Gu Immortal wanted a Strength Path Immortal Gu, he was likely to be a Strength Path Gu Immortal. Even if he was not, the allure of Eat Strength Immortal Gu would definitely be very high to this person. Everything went as Feng Jiu Gu had expected. After Fang Yuan heard the description for Eat Strength Immortal Gu, he was surprised and overjoyed. This Eat Strength Immortal Gu was too suitable for him. Regarding a Gu Immortal's cultivation, it mainly involved undergoing tribulations in their immortal aperture. With each successful tribulation, the Gu Immortal's body would have an increase in Dao marks of their own path. The more Dao marks on a Gu Immortal's body, the closer they would be to heaven and earth, and the closer to the laws of the great Dao. The stronger the tribulation, the more Dao marks would be etched on them after completing it. Thus, when assessing a Gu Immortal's cultivation level, they would usually use standards like 1 heavenly tribulation, or 2 heavenly tribulations. The more numerous their Dao marks, the greater resonance they could cause when using the corresponding immortal Gu, and the greater effect that immortal Gu could unleash. When Fang Yuan used Worldly Wave Trace Immortal Gu, the Strength Path Dao marks on his body were unrelated to Worldly Wave Trace's Water Path Dao marks, there even was conflict. Thus, the result was not great, he could only use about 60 to 70% of its power. Phi DD EW UPT T S on N O V/E/L in.com. But if Fang Yuan used a Strength Path Immortal Gu like pulling mountain or pulling water, his own body and the immortal Gu would resonate. Not only would he be able to amplify the effect of the immortal Gu, he could even unleash 130% of its power. Furthermore, the more they resonated, the more Fang Yuan would be able to comprehend the laws of Strength Path personally when he used the immortal Gu. The more his understanding grew, the more his Strength Path attainment will deepen, and his foundation would accumulate gradually. One day, he would achieve a qualitative breakthrough. But despite that, Fang Yuan's greatest problem was that he was an immortal zombie, his immortal aperture was dead. Every once in a while, a portion of his blessed land would disintegrate, but he would also face no tribulations. The way of heaven was to be balanced and fair, calamities and tribulations would only be unleashed on small worlds that had blessings. The greater the fortune, the stronger the calamities and tribulations. Immortal zombies did not need to face tribulations, that was a good thing. After all, with a dead aperture, if they had to undergo calamities and tribulations as well, there was no way to survive. But to Fang Yuan, without any calamities and tribulations, he would not have any growth of Dao marks, and his cultivation level would stagnate. Of course, to increase my Dao marks, I can use immortal Gu like Iron Crown Eagle Strength Gu to form Dao marks on my body. But such beast strength immortal Gu are not suited for the human body, and the number of Dao marks is very sparse, there is little effect. The Dao marks generated by 2 or 3 beast strength immortal Gu are less than the amount gained from undergoing one earthly calamity. Fang Yuan had the experience of using beast strength Gu worms. Beast strength did not suit the human body, they were not easy to use. Beast phantoms could only be unleashed sometimes, but not always. Like the Iron Crown Eagle Strength Gu, it could carve a portion of the Iron Crown Eagle's Strength Path Dao marks onto his body. But these Tao marks did not suit Fang Yuan's physical body, because the structure of the human body was different from an eagle. When the Tao marks of the Iron Crown Eagle resonated with Fang Yuan, only then would he be able to unleash the strength of an Iron Crown Eagle, along with summoning an Iron Crown Eagle Strength Path Phantom. Unless he had all-out effort Immortal Gu. All-out effort's true effect was to allow complete resonance of the Strength Path Tao marks carved on a person's body. But Fang Yuan's all-out effort Gu was only rank 4. Although it was a vital Gu, he had no idea how to refine it into an Immortal Gu. The Immortal Gu recipe of all-out effort Gu had been lost over the course of the long river of time. In this regard, Fang Yuan's greatest hope was Xianxia land spirit. There were several thousand Immortal Gu recipes in Xianxia blessed land. There was hope that one of them was the Immortal Gu recipe of all-out effort Gu. Chapter 759, Successful Extortion. But at the moment, Fang Yuan and Xianxia land spirit's relationship had not deepened to the point of trading Immortal Gu recipes between them. Even when it came to Mortal Gu recipes, Xianxia land spirit treasured them greatly and refused to sell them. When it was related to matters involving the refinement of Gu, Xianxia land spirit was always very stingy. Earlier, Fang Yuan was willing to pay a high price to buy his hairy men. However, these hairy man slaves were involved with the refinement of Gu. Xianxia land spirit treated them like treasures and would not sell them, not to mention Gu recipes. But if Fang Yuan obtained Eat Strength Immortal Gu, the situation would improve drastically for him. Eat Strength Immortal Gu could allow a Gu Immortal to grow Strength Path Tao marks. Because of that, the Tao marks that they gained would definitely be perfectly suited for their own body. Fang Yuan's cultivation level had stagnated. He could certainly rely on this Immortal Gu to make some form of compensation in that regard. Fang Yuan was moved now. One could say that as long as one was a Strength Path Gu Immortal, they would definitely be moved when they saw the Eat Strength Immortal Gu. With this Strength Path Immortal Gu, I am not afraid that the other party will remain unmoved. Feng Jiugu sat down calmly, feeling very confident in his heart. Once this Gu appeared, almost all of the bids of the competitors for the Immortal Gu seemed much inferior. As long as one was not an idiot, they would be able to see the benefits of Eat Strength Immortal Gu. If I did not find out the flaw, I might have traded for this Gu already. What a pity for you. Fang Yuan was laughing coldly to himself internally. At this time, from the 23rd secret room, someone reported a price, 1 Iron Crown Eagle Strength Immortal Gu, as well as 15 drops of the immortal material Rule I Blood. Hearing this voice, Fang Yuan's smile became wider. Earlier, he had used Rising Azure Cloud Immortal Gu to exchange for an Iron Crown Eagle Strength Immortal Gu. But during that process, he did not expose his identity. He had confirmed the buyer through informing Qin Baisheng. Thus, other than Qin Baisheng himself, none of the other Gu Immortals present knew who the Iron Crown Eagle Strength Immortal Gu ended up with. Qin Baisheng had signed an agreement. He would naturally not leak any information on this. Thus, Fang Yuan could use it to bid freely. As for the person inside the 23rd secret room, it was none other than Tai Bai Yunsheng. In order to obtain delight in water and mountain immortal Gu, Feng Jiugu had made many preparations earlier, asking Prince Feng Xian for help. How could Fang Yuan not make some prior arrangements himself? He had already asked Qin Baisheng and secretly changed Tai Bai Yunsheng's room to another secret room. Even though Tai Bai Yunsheng did not expose his or Fang Yuan's identity when he was in the 11th secret room, it was undoubtedly much safer for him to change his room now. After Tai Bai Yunsheng made the bid, Fang Yuan did not make any response for a long time. As time passed slowly, Feng Jiugu started to inwardly frown. Domination Immortal Chu Du had also started bidding. He offered another Beast Strength Immortal Gu, while also adding some immortal material in the bid. Chu Du did not want delight in water and mountain immortal Gu, but he had a use for it. He was a Strength Path Gu Immortal, the reason why he was giving up a strength path immortal Gu was because he wanted the eat strength immortal Gu. Feng Yuan chuckled lightly, he immediately understood Chu Du's intentions. It was Chu Du's own fault for exposing his identity, it forced him into a passive situation. Regarding Chu Du's sudden interference, Feng Yuan was happy to see such a situation, he remained silent as he allowed the auction to continue proceeding. Under his request, Tai Bai Yunxing continued to raise his bid again. Feng Jiugu frowned even more deeply, he had no choice but to start raising his bid as well. The moment he spoke, Tai Bai Yunxing would follow up and make a bid, his attitude was imposing, as if he definitely had to obtain this immortal Gu no matter what. Feng Jiugu could not help but become suspicious, was this eat strength Gu too unattractive to the person inside the 10th secret room? Or was he just trying to be greedy and was waiting for the bid to rise? Feng Jiugu did not fall into the trap easily, he was the shining exemplar of a generation after all, he decided to pause now. That way, he could analyze the situation more clearly from the outside, he would also be able to probe Feng Yuan's true intentions. Swordmaster Yulan stopped bidding, it was as if she did not want to lose eat strength immortal Gu, thus she had backed out of the competition. Such a situation quickly attracted the attention of all the Gu immortals. The happiest one was obviously Chu Du, he sent a message again and urged Feng Jiugu to sell the eat strength immortal Gu to him. Feng Jiugu laughed lightly, rejecting him once again. Meanwhile, Feng Yuan instructed Tai Bai Yunxing to continue raising his bid. As the price increased steadily, it became very expensive, most of the Gu immortals started backing out of this, they were stating that this price was too high. Eventually, only Chu Du and Tai Bai Yunxing were left bidding. Chu Du was currently having a tough time. His real motive was to obtain eat strength immortal Gu, but Feng Jiugu refused to sell it to him, it seemed like he still wanted to bid for the delight in water and mountain immortal Gu. Chu Du did not dare to be complacent, he quickly followed along with the bidding. On one hand, he wanted to prevent the eat strength immortal Gu from falling into someone else's possession, and on the other hand, if he obtained delight in water and mountain immortal Gu, he would have a huge chance of using it to trade Gu with Swordmaster Yulan. Tai Bai Yunxing's intentions were very simple and pure. He just did whatever his junior brother asked him to do. Even if he won the delight in water and mountain immortal Gu, that was fine. After all, whatever price he paid would still return to his own pockets. Feng Jiuji's strategy was also very simple. That was to sit this out for now and reap the spoils later, by the time the competition was almost over, he would jump in and raise the price by a huge margin, winning all at once. These three people, because of their own goals and intentions, created a stalemate by pure chance. As the situation continued to stall, after a few more rounds, someone among the Gu immortals in the main hall came to a sudden realization, he shouted subconsciously, "Why is this delight in water and mountain immortal Gu so popular now? There are so many immortal materials listed, the bid has reached such a high price." The others quickly became aware of this fact as well. That's right, it is so high now. A wisdom path immortal Gu that can only produce joyful will is actually reaching such a high price, this is a rare sight. In my opinion, the only reason why this is reaching such a high price is due to the involvement of Lord Chu Du. He is willing to give up a strength path immortal Gu in order to obtain delight in water and mountain, I am sure he has his motives. Chu Du, who had just been mentioned, was not in a good state currently. His face was full of worries, his financial power right now was truly lacking. Sigh, if I had known this, I would have stalled my tribulation. The intense pressure coming from Tai Bai Yunxing made Chu Du feel very uncomfortable. Since when did I, the great domination immortal, get into such a pathetic state? Chu Du had incredible battle strength, but in this huge auction, battle strength was not the key, it was one's financial power. Tai Bai Yunxing got instructions from Feng Yuan and continued to raise his bid. Chu Du gritted his teeth and hung on. After several rounds like this, Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu's price continued to rise under the eyes of all the Gu immortals present. Qin Bai Sheng had been observing quietly. By this point, he could not help but praise inwardly, this Sha Huang is really a brilliant person despite being an immortal zombie, he is not simple. But Chu Du's financial limits are already clear now, he is hesitating when bidding. If it were me, I would take the opportunity and sell it now. Qin Bai Sheng knew, although Fang Yuan's plan seemed simple, executing it was no easy feat. Having to plan matters out while simultaneously executing them, it required a lot of foresight and the ability to read people's minds. If he went overboard even a little, his profits would vanish like a puff of smoke. However, it seemed like Fang Yuan did not know what going overboard meant. He continued getting Tai Bai Yunsheng to raise the bid, acting imposingly. Chu Du was finally unable to continue, his forehead was full of sweat. His gaze pierced into the single room, looking at the direction of the 23rd secret room. He was thinking about the person inside. He probably had a special need for Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu, otherwise he would not bid at such a high price with an attitude of an unrelenting, fierce tiger. So be it. Chu Du sighed deeply, keeping quiet as he stopped bidding. At this point, only Tai Bai Yunsheng was left. But even so, Tai Bai Yunsheng continued to report a bid, raising the price by another margin. Meanwhile, Swordmaster Yulan did not make a single sound, it was as if she had already backed out of the current bid. Fang Yuan laughed coldly, transmitting his decision to Qin Bai Sheng. Qin Bai Sheng heard this news and was first stunned, why was he selling it to his ally? But he quickly understood that perhaps Sha Huang and Bai Sheng were not as intimate as they appeared to be. He thought about this and his mind cleared up. But deep down, he still felt that there was something weird going on. Qin Bai Sheng shook his head mentally, he was on the stage and had no time to waste. He announced, 23rd secret room, going once. After pausing for a short while, he continued, 23rd secret room, going twice. The Gu immortals in the main hall talked to themselves softly. It seems that the victor of this round is the 23rd secret room. That's right, they seem to have great interest in Delight in Water and Mountain. Even after Domination Immortal backed out, he still continued to raise the bid alone. His motive was to pull some distance and prevent the seller from having any intentions to sell the Immortal Gu at the last moment to Domination Immortal. This price is truly very high, many of the immortal materials are making me drool. To think that towards the end of the auction, there is still such a high price being sold, this can squeeze into the top 10 most expensive auction rounds. The situation was now set, Fang Yuan started to get nervous. He squinted his eyes as his heart wavered slightly, maybe, my analysis earlier was wrong. 23rd secret room, going thry. Qin Bai Sheng shouted until here, before someone interrupted him. Feng Jiuge spoke, eat strength immortal Gu, and on top of what the 23rd secret room is bidding, I will add in another 400 kilograms of red refinement metal. 400 kilograms of red refinement metal, this elevated the price again. This was a huge bid that exceeded what Tai Bai Yunsheng had done earlier in his individual bids. Everyone gasped sharply, they did not think that at the last moment, there would be such a huge change. Qin Bai Sheng was also stunned for a while. Chu Du's expression turned pale, but he soon sighed to himself gloomily. Fang Yuan laughed heartily, great, Swordmaster Yulan, you were truly very patient. From the 23rd secret room, Tai Bai Yunsheng's voice could be heard, he sounded like he was extremely annoyed at his plan being thwarted, he continued to bid in an angry tone. Feng Jiuge laughed bitterly to himself, after observing for so long, he had already believed that the person inside the 23rd secret room was serious about bidding. My luck this time was truly horrible. The two immortal Gu that I wanted to buy were both met with tough competitors. The most important thing was, these two competitors were very affluent and wealthy. No, the auction did not disallow the exchanging of secret rooms. There is also another possibility, that the secret rooms all belong to one person. Maybe he knows about the matter of Water Pavilion. After all, Mo Yao did leave behind an inheritance, or maybe, it is the other 9 sects of Central Continent that do not want to see my spirit affinity house regain. Feng Jiugu was a very intelligent person, but intelligent people tended to overthink matters. Regardless of the situation, for the sake of Water Pavilion, I need to obtain this delight in water and mountain immortal Gu no matter what. Feng Jiugu quickly made up his mind, bidding again. He and Tai Bai Yunxing bid back and forth, both refusing to relent. Under the shocked gazes of the Gu immortals, delight in water and mountain immortal Gu's price continued to soar higher. It soon went into the top 5 prices. Soon after, it climbed to the second spot at an alarming rate. The highest price was naturally Feng Jiuji's 2 for 1 exchange to buy Fang Yuan's worldly wave trace immortal Gu. Don't tell me I have to do a 2 for 1 exchange again. Feng Jiuji's expression was cold and solemn. He finally experienced what Chu Du was feeling earlier. This was an overbearing pressure that was exerted on him constantly. No matter what price he bid, the person in the 23rd secret room would immediately bid at a higher price. Feng Jiugu could not sit anymore. He started to pace around in his secret room. If a 2 for 1 exchange would guarantee him victory, he would do it even if he had to grit his teeth. But he felt something amiss deep within himself, yet he could not state clearly where the problem was. If I do a 2 for 1 exchange again, someone who is paying attention might find out my true motive. That will be a huge hindrance when I try to find water harmony Gu in the future. Feng Jiuji's target was Water Pavilion, but only 2 of the 3 core immortal Gu appeared in the auction. He naturally wanted to obtain water harmony Gu as well. The weird feeling in Feng Jiuji's heart was making him feel a hint of unrest as well. He sat back in his seat, deciding to go on the offensive. He shouted his bid again. This time, he requested for the seller to state what he needed, and he would try to fulfill those demands. Fang Yuan purposely paused for a moment, to give a false impression that he was in deep thought. Next, he gave Qin Bai Sheng a new requirement, a complete wisdom path inheritance. Everyone gasped loudly. This price was too high. To think that this person had the guts to say it. Feng Jiugu was dumbfounded. He indeed had a wisdom path inheritance, but it was incomplete. The seller was acting like this. Were they trying to prevent the immortal Gu from being sold? Tai Bai Yunxing quickly shouted, I have an incomplete wisdom path inheritance in my hands. Feng Jiugu rapidly followed up, an incomplete wisdom path inheritance, I have that too. Tai Bai Yunxing snorted coldly. He continued, may the seller list another request, please. The Gu immortal looked around at each other. Did they hear wrongly? The price was still going to increase further. Qin Bai Sheng was silent for a moment before replying for Fang Yuan. The seller is requesting a killer move that can disguise one's identity. The one which is superior will win. Feng Jiuji's heart tightened. The seller said that. They were obviously putting more emphasis on the disguising killer move. Tai Bai Yunxing quickly said, I have a complete killer move. Although it is a mortal killer move, it originated from thieving heaven demon venerable. It is called Unfamiliar Face. Unfamiliar Face. Thieving heaven demon venerable. N/W novel chapt. RS are published on no/vel/bin.co/m. The main hall went into a huge commotion. Feng Jiuji's forehead was sweating, his arms were tightly grabbing the handle of his seat as his gaze shined anxiously. He hesitated for a moment before shouting as well, I have a killer move. It is an incomplete immortal move, originating from thieving heaven demon venerable, called vaguely familiar face. Everyone cried out in shock. Fang Yuan stood up from his seat excitedly, his eyes shining with brilliance. It seems that the rumors in my previous life were not baseless. Spirit Affinity House does indeed have the immortal killer move vaguely familiar face. Spirit Affinity House had many good things, but most of their signature collection could not be extorted. Once he did, the other party would understand matters at once. Furthermore, this killer move was the most useful one to Fang Yuan himself. Even in his previous life, Spirit Affinity House had the killer move vaguely familiar face, but they did not spread any information about it. During the 5 regions chaotic war, when spies were abundant, they entered enemy territories and obtained many gains. After many times, Gu immortals among both enemies and allied parties continued to analyze, and confirmed that this was the killer move, vaguely familiar face. But Spirit Affinity House refused to admit it. After all, as one of the 10 great ancient sects, a leader of the righteous path, using a demon venerable's killer move was damaging to their reputation. What Fang Yuan did not know was, this immortal killer move belonged to Feng Gu. In his previous life, Feng Gu had contributed this killer move to his sect, thus, the rumors from his previous life were started. Fang Yuan did not know this fact, and he did not guess that the person bidding was Feng Gu. But that did not stop him from extorting this killer move. Of course, Feng Gu would not hand over the entire complete immortal killer move to Fang Yuan. But an incomplete immortal killer move was already much better than the mortal killer move unfamiliar face. Fang Yuan confirmed it on the spot, selling Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu to Swordmaster Yulan. In this way, not only would he receive a huge amount of immortal materials, filling up half of his list, he even obtained Eat Strength Immortal Gu, an incomplete wisdom path inheritance, as well as the incomplete immortal killer move vaguely familiar face. Chapter 760, Essence of the Luck Path True Inheritance. Fang Yuan and Feng Gu quickly connected and completed the transaction. Qin Baisheng had already started the auction of the next immortal Gu. N/W novel chapt. RS are published on no/vel/bin.co/m. Feng Gu was expressionless as he looked at the Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu in his hands, his gaze flickering slightly. The strange feeling he had was still lingering around. After repeated twists and turns, I finally obtained this immortal Gu. Even if I had to spend quite a lot, but considering the rewards for the sect's missions, they should be enough to cover for it and even more. Eat Strength Immortal Gu might be precious, but it only has use to Strength Path Gu immortals. Even though I had to sacrifice vaguely familiar face, it was only a portion of it. Even if I had to give the complete version, the core immortal Gu are still with me, so I don't have to fear the other side using it. Feng Gu thought it over for a while, his expression gradually easing up. In the main hall, many Gu immortals were bidding for the immortal Gu. While Fang Yuan, similar to Feng Gu, did not have his attention on the platform, but on the goods he obtained. Feng Gu had let go of Eat Strength Immortal Gu of his own accord, thus Fang Yuan was able to easily refine it and store it into his immortal aperture. This incomplete wisdom path inheritance was slightly more intact than Fang Yuan's malicious thought inheritance. It had the Gu recipes from rank 1 to rank 5 of Memory Thought Gu, and an immortal Gu recipe for Reminiscence Immortal Gu, as well as several mortal killer moves. This Memory Thought Gu is rather suitable for me. I can only recall my previous life's memories roughly. With the help of this Gu, I should be able to recall more clearly. If I can refine the Reminiscence Immortal Gu, it would be even better. Fang Yuan checked them and stored this wisdom path inheritance with satisfaction. For the time being, he was not planning to try and refine Immortal Gu. There were extremely large costs involved in refining Immortal Gu and the risks were also very high. Moreover, Fang Yuan already had many Immortal Gu with him. Reminiscence Immortal Gu was not necessary and would only be an additional bonus. The most urgent matter at hand for Fang Yuan was to get rid of the immortal zombie body and restore his living status. Even though he obtained Eat Strength Immortal Gu, which could increase Dao marks, it was only a slight offset and could not compare to passing tribulations. Undergoing tribulation was dangerous, but the increase in Dao marks from doing so were extremely high. Were it not for this, He Lu Lan would not risk her life to pass tribulations. Fang Yuan carefully inspected vaguely familiar face. This was an incomplete immortal killer move. His initial estimation was that this was only 50% complete. However, Fang Yuan was already satisfied. He knew the other party would not take out the complete immortal killer move and sell it wholly to him. Obtaining this much was already good enough. Especially since the contents within did not conceal the crucial core immortal Gu. The core immortal Gu are the foundation of the killer move. They are in Spirit Affinity House's possession. Although I can't obtain it, I can remodel the killer move. Fang Yuan's intention was this. He had attainment in Transformation Path, and Wisdom Gu's help along with the foundation of vaguely familiar face, the entirety of unfamiliar face. With the addition of 50% of vaguely familiar face's contents, he had high confidence. The 3 stages of familiar face are famous methods of thieving Heaven Demon Venerable, but I can take references from them. We are all humans in the end. If others can do it, why can't I? So there is no need to copy others' thoughts directly. Fang Yuan was optimistic about this. After a while, Qin Baisheng had already auctioned the final few immortal Gu. Among them, the second last immortal Gu unfortunately went unsold. The anticipation of the Gu immortals were already pouring out of their gazes. Everyone was aware the next would be the main highlight of the auction, auctioning the essence of the Luck Path True Inheritance. After secretly getting in contact with Qin Baisheng, Fang Yuan and Tai Baiyunxing changed their secret rooms. Not only them, many Gu immortals also did the same. After all, the essence of the Luck Path True Inheritance had enormous value. Many Gu immortals hoped others would not know what immortal Gu they obtained. Truthfully, the Gu immortals were allowed to casually change their secret rooms, and it could be said to be one of the loopholes of the auction rules. This auction was held in a hurry because of the situation. The loopholes were numerous, nowhere near as watertight as during the time of the 5 regions chaotic war in Fang Yuan's previous life. Regarding this point, Qin Baisheng was actually aware of it, but he was helpless. He held this auction to protect himself. If he put in too many rules, he would be offending many forces and many people. To him, holding the auction was enough. He naturally would not go offend others for this. Now it is time for the auction of the first item of the essence of the Luck Path True Inheritance. It is a set of Gu recipes for Luck Inspection Gu. Qin Baisheng had just spoken and already attracted the intense attention of many Gu immortals. Luck Inspection Gu. As the name implied, it was an investigative Gu worm that could detect luck. Luck was formless and could not be detected by naked eyes or ordinary methods. It could only be done by using this Luck Inspection Gu. It could be said that Luck Inspection Gu was one of the main foundations of the Luck Path True Inheritance. This Luck Inspection Gu was even more useful to those Gu immortals who had bought some Luck Path Immortal Gu beforehand, like Leave Luck Gu, Seal Luck Gu, Transfer Luck Gu, Break Luck Gu and so on. Qin Baisheng intentionally placed this set of Gu recipes for Luck Inspection Gu towards the end because he had thought it through. Looking at the restless Gu immortals, Qin Baisheng continued, this set of Luck Inspection Gu recipes does not only include the Gu recipes of the Mortal Gu from rank 1 to rank 5, it also has a Remnant Immortal Gu recipe for rank 7 Luck Inspection Immortal Gu. Is there not any Luck Inspection Immortal Gu? Heavenly Lord Baizu asked. Qin Baisheng smiled, there is indeed a Luck Inspection Immortal Gu which is rank 6 and is with me, but I don't want to sell it. But I can guarantee that apart from this Immortal Gu, everything related to Luck Inspection Gu is being auctioned off. Because of the previous agreement, Qin Baisheng's words were convincing. Not selling Luck Inspection Immortal Gu. Immediately, A Gu immortal in the main hall frowned and showed his dissatisfaction openly. Qin Baixing snorted as he gave the speaker a deadly stare. This is merely a rank 6 luck inspection immortal Gu, I am confident of having the ability to protect it. Guorong, do you have an opinion? If you buy this immortal Gu, can you keep it safe? Gu immortal Guorong's expression changed, and he kept quiet. He was only a rank 6 Gu immortal while Qin Baixing was a rank 7 expert, the two could not be mentioned to be at the same level. Guorong looked around, and broke into cold sweat, inwardly cursing his mistake. He wanted to borrow everyone's power to force Qin Baixing. But the other Gu immortals were just observing like spectators. Qin Baixing was indeed forced into holding the auction, but he still had the ability to keep a rank 6 luck inspection immortal Gu safe. His strength allowed him to do so. After this small interlude, Qin Baixing listed the requirements for trade. Because this does not involve immortal Gu, you can use any resource to trade for it. Be it immortal essence stones or the immortal materials in the list. Saying so, he took out a list. There were a dozen or so immortal materials mentioned on the list, and the requirements for their quantities was not high like the shocking list that Fang Yuan brought out earlier. Qin Baixing did not specialize in Gu refinement. Gu refinement consumed extremely large amounts of resources. Very few lone cultivators would go down this path, unless they had extremely high talent. Fang Yuan guessed that these immortal materials were very likely to be food for immortal Gu. The auction began with an extremely intense atmosphere. Because it did not involve immortal Gu, the threshold for the bidding was low, and for a while, most of the Gu immortals made bids one after the other. In the main hall, the sounds of the bids being called out rose and fell. The speed of the bids being called out could be said to be at the peak since the auction began. The price quickly soared in the intense atmosphere. Qin Baixing looked at all this with a smile on his face. Since he held this auction, he naturally made arrangements that were more profitable to himself. Fang Yuan also made bids a few times but was quickly surpassed by others. I have 1 luck inspection Gu. Unfortunately, mortal Gu are not effective against immortals. This set of mortal Gu recipes has no benefits to me. Qin Baixing has admitted he has the luck inspection immortal Gu. So, even if I obtain the rank 7 remnant recipe and perfect it, immortal Gu are unique, I won't be able to refine the rank 7 luck inspection immortal Gu. Fang Yuan sensibly chose to stop bidding. He was merely one of those who retreated. The intense bidding soon eliminated a large group of people. Finally, only some experts like Yao Huang, the Eastern Sea rank 8 Gu immortal, Feng Jiu Gu and Yuan Rang Zun were left. These people all had a common point, they were all members of large forces. To them, mortal luck inspection Gu were much more attractive than the rank 7 remnant recipe. Mortal luck inspection Gu could be used to observe the luck of mortals. With them, these forces would have a completely new standard of detecting talents. For a long time, the Gu master world had used aptitude as the standard for inspection. Besides the aptitude, there were also individual talents, disposition and fortuitous encounters. Talents consisted of battle talent, comprehension, refinement talent and so on. It would gradually be revealed as one continued to cultivate. Disposition could be observed through interaction. Only fortuitous encounters were hard to measure. Many times, Gu masters with poor aptitude and talents would soar to the sky, or have an unexpected rise due to fortuitous encounters. This was a common event. Especially in this world, where Gu masters left behind their inheritances. If these forces had this Gu, there was no doubt they could make a more comprehensive inspection of talents and raise more geniuses. The individual lone cultivators retreated from the bidding war. But to large forces, the luck inspection Gu had extremely strong attraction, and each of them made fierce bids without conceding. Finally, this mortal Gu recipe had reached a high price, and leaders of several forces were almost going to exchange with immortal Gu. It was then that Yao Huang said, I will guarantee on my name, if I purchase it first, I will put this Gu recipe for sale in the open transaction later. Yao Huang was one of the 5 great rank 8s of Northern Plains with extremely high reputation. He was also a leader of the righteous path, and with his assurance, everyone retreated. Qin Baixing felt very dissatisfied with this, but showed a smile on the surface, not daring to offend Yao Huang. Next is the second item. A rank 7 immortal Gu of luck path called reverse misfortune. As the name implies, this Gu can change a person's bad luck to good luck. Qin Baixing introduced loudly. This immortal Gu was similar to Calamity Beckoning Gu. Both were of luck path and both were rank 7, but comparing the responses, they were as distinct as heaven and earth. Many rank 7 Gu immortals as well as rank 8 great experts made their bids. This immortal Gu was extremely practical and there was no need to use luck inspection Gu with it. It was indeed worthy of being an essence of the luck path true inheritance. A fierce competition resulted for reverse misfortune. The intense competition was no inferior to a bloodbath in a battlefield. Because the starting bid for reverse misfortune was a metal path rank 7 immortal Gu, Fang Yuan could only watch from the sidelines. Finally, the price kept on soaring till it surpassed the high price records of worldly wave trace and delight in water and mountain, and took the first position.